OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
All right, it's 7:30. You're welcome along this Tuesday morning. It's Ger Gilroy and Johnny Ward with you all the way through until 10. If you've got anything you want to get off your chest, any sporting factoid you'd like to deliver, you can smack us around the chops if you want, or you can leave a comment on the YouTube stream. You can also text the show 0879 180 180. Johnny, how are you?
Good morning, Ger.
What's going on?
What's going on? Another good game in Dublin to look forward to tonight. Interested to see what team he picks, I think. Will be the night that Troy Parrott reveals himself as Ireland's future star.
I don't know. I mean, we have a current star already. You know, maybe they can play together. I don't know. Maybe the two of them and Callum Robinson is going to be something for the next 3 years. I don't know. It's finally a bit where you're like, he's playing a bit of football at a level that's right for him at this stage of his career. He's starting to score goals in recent weeks. There's a bit of maturity coming there. Connolly's trending in the right direction.
Yeah.
Borough hasn't quite exploded just yet, but maybe you move to somebody like Borough in a full season, the championship, where you play every single minute and you get kicked around the place and you emerge from that unscathed, is the right thing for him. Who knows? But like we all know, it's Ferguson's job eventually, right? I mean, he's 16 now. Get him in the team.
Yeah. He's. It's just you're burdening him with so much expectation and that, and you see with I guess the likes of Kevin Zeffy as well as some of these underage starlets. I think the thing about Ferguson is he's physically so big for his age. It's just like the young kind of the minor Gaelic footballer or the under 16. You're like, God, what's he going to be like when he's a senior? Ferguson. Haven't really seen him play that much apart from kind of snippets.
Well, there's all those underage videos where
played for Bows against
looks like Zlatan.
Chelsea. Played a bit for the under 21s obviously. The under 21s have a big game against Sweden today as well, which I think will be intriguing. I find the whole Irish kind of revolution even before Stephen Kenny with the underage teams, when Stephen Kenny was the under 21 manager, and the underage teams in general, there's a lot more interest I think in them, and generally there's a lot to be excited about.
Maybe the previous director of footballs were doing something right. Who knows?
I don't think I think Ruud Doctor did a lot of good in the FAI. Like I think
it's very unpopular for you to say that, Johnny.
Yeah, well,
slashing those sacred cows of schoolboy football, forcing them to play in the summertime when the weather's good. Who the hell do you think you are, Johnny?
Well, yeah.
What about their traditional right to play bad football in mucky pitches?
That's shown to be even the mucky pitches. I was talking to one parent there recently, and she was going on about all the games that her son had missed because they'd been called off. But beyond the mucky pitches, like the decision with the under-14s league is still baffling to me, completely baffling that it hasn't started yet. To sate the schoolboy lobby, I think. And
the schoolboy lobby elect important people, and they've got big votes when it comes to who gets to decide who's on what committees and who gets what blazer and who gets to go to what trips. That's unfortunately still the reality of how football is organised for a certain cohort of people.
Changing. I think
it is changing, slowly, very slowly.
The League of Ireland clubs, like, still probably, the whole underage thing was kind of foisted upon them as well.
They seem to be getting to grips with it.
They are getting to grips with it, yeah. It's an interesting thing going forward.
It's not going to happen overnight, but
no. I think, in fairness, I think they've done well. Like, I think the standard has been surprisingly good as well, and over time, if we could get government investment, I think there's, I'm going to bang the drum on this a good bit going forward. I think government investment in underage football in general in Ireland and facilities is a win-win. And if the government doesn't see kind of a benefit from investing in coaches and just not players' wages now, but investing in putting in structures in clubs around the country, keeping kids in school and keeping them in Ireland when they can't go to the UK until they're 18 anymore. We could have a football industry in this country within maybe 10 years, something like that.
Really
which
easily.
Would be great.
You could really easily do it.
Like the likes of, you're from Kildare, like Club Kildare underage have made massive progress and they're aspiring to get into the League of Ireland. I think they're a great example of what might happen. I know Kildare wants a League of Ireland team, but they've already... The League of Ireland underage has given that kind of foundation for the likes of Kildare to start and hopefully bring in a senior team. But they're making, like, Club Kildare, I think, beat Galway United's under, I want to say 15s 3-0, I think, at the weekend. Had a great result against them, making great progress.
All right. Do you want to talk briefly about what's going on in Galway? There's a potential takeover?
Yeah, so there's a vote tomorrow night.
How lucky that the Saudi takeover didn't happen, right?
It's mad, like I voted for it.
Do you regret that now?
I do, yeah. Like we were presented with something at the meeting, in Galway, and we were presented by people who'd been in Saudi Arabia, and we obviously had to go with what they saw and they felt, and I think it would make a good article. How did it collapse? Why did it collapse? Because it seemed to be over the line.
I feel a currency article coming on.
Yeah. It'd be great to get a trip to Riyadh and
good live pitch for a piece this morning.
It would be. Well, the currency guys are fascinated by the Comers. I think like anyone else. How did these people from Glenamaddy, who were basically plasterers, become billionaires, and incredible work ethic and all that, and what they've put into Galway United for minimal enough return, I would have thought, is startling. And I think
you bring them up because they're the next potential takeover.
Yeah, so the Comers, there's a vote tomorrow night in Galway as to whether the co-op effectively gives 85% ownership of the club to the Comers / an option to do that. I think the Comers were probably, when the Saudi takeover was happening, considering the money the Comers have put in, the Comers were probably thinking, well, why can't that be us? And I mentioned underage. We have an underage player, Alex Murphy, who's been linked with a fairly lucrative move to England, and maybe it's kind of pricked the ears of some people within the club that Galway United don't have any assets, but they do have an asset. They do have assets in the players. That's basically the only asset, and those assets actually might become quite valuable. Some of our underage players are very, very good. So that's possibly what's happening. But I don't, as a fan, you have to decide. Well, I love being a fan-owned club as well. As much as we're not particularly, we could be a bit dysfunctional in some respects and lack volunteers, but you don't want to give things up necessarily very easily either.
All right, let's move on, because we want to talk a little bit more about the atmosphere at the Aviva for the rugby matches in particular.
That's ultimately why we're here, isn't it?
Jerry Thornley's piece today. It's a theme that had come up on the news round, where they were talking about the absence of any good songs. There's the Fields, and that's it really that the rugby crowd sings, and no one actually thinks that the Fields is a great experience. At the end of a game when you've been beaten 4-0, the Fields is the perfect thing to lean back on as a funeral, as a wake, right? There's nothing else.
Boozed up and hoping to go back to the pub.
Thornley's piece today. Last Saturday week at the Ireland-Scotland Six Nations match, an 80-year-old rugby supporter was taken to his first game at the Aviva Stadium in several years. It had barely kicked off when he was first obliged to stand up for someone to walk past him or return to their seat, usually with a tray of pints. This constant flow of people became so tediously repetitive, he began to keep count. By the time the game had finished, he reckoned he'd stood up 73 times. He won't be going back.
That figure is very hard to believe, but maybe it's true.
Time to ban booze during games at the Aviva is the headline of the piece. Now, they won't ban booze during the games at the Aviva because the volume of pints sold is one of the reasons why big deals are done between the stadium and the providers of the booze. And so I think it's unlikely, but is it the booze that's the issue?
No, I see where he's coming from, and I was at 3 rugby games this year, and there's a mix at rugby games in terms of probably very hardcore rugby fans, day trippers, partners of people going to the games, that sort of thing. Who may not have that much interest either, but a lot of people just basically going to the bar, and the constant kind of getting up and letting people go by and people with big trays doesn't really lead to an atmosphere, even though you'd imagine inebriation does help in terms of creating an atmosphere. I think partly the reason with Ireland is Ireland have become quite good, and there were a lot of dead rubber games as well. I wasn't at the Scotland game, but it is striking if you go to a football game compared to a rugby game now, and football traditionally didn't have the access to booze. The rugby, I don't know how much of it is drink related, but the rugby atmosphere is just crap. I don't know, is it like...
It's 140 quid for some tickets.
Yeah.
It's too much.
And then you pay this horrendous charge towards Ticketmaster as well. If you want to buy 6 tickets that are, say, €125 for Ticketmaster, you have to pay a fee multiplied by 6, and it's a substantial fee. And then you go in, and it's like, I wasn't blown. I wouldn't be in any rush back to a rugby game at all after that.
There's a significant difference between the November internationals and it feels like there are more corporate day trippers who are there to do cracking business than support the team for the Six Nations, because those tickets seem to have been sold that way. And it seems like there are more fans who have bought tickets the way you would traditionally buy a ticket, as opposed to being gifted a ticket for the Six Nations games. And so therefore that's why I think there's a difference between the booze. I don't know, if the pints were delivered the way they are in other stadiums around the world. The other thing that was very shocking in this is there's a bit at the end. A key difference is that the bars open well in advance at Croke Park, and they close beforehand and open at half-time and full-time, so you can't in the middle of the game go back and forth. And then they also have thousands of pints pre-poured approaching half-time, something which one Croke Park caterer tried to implement at the Aviva to her astonished boss. I've only tried to buy pints at the Aviva after a rugby match once, and it was about a 25-minute experience, and they would do one at a time, and you're like, "What? Is this England?
What?
Am I in England? Did I accidentally get a teleportal to a pub in London where they can't pull pints? Like, I'll have the two of them at the same time, please.
Yeah.
At the same time.
That is a bit mad.
Anyway,
you know,
anecdotal evidence is bad when you're trying to make up rules, but the pint pouring is not great.
A lot of it is as well, in my view, that a lot of the people who go to rugby games are pretty well off in life, and if you compare to Ireland in the 80s and I go back to that documentary Where's Your Pride, that showed Ireland win the Triple Crown in the early 80s, the country was basically in the shit, and it meant an awful lot more to people because it really, really meant something, because people were poor, and a sporting event like that, beating England, like really, really lifted them. Whereas Ireland beating Scotland now, what does it mean to the people, really?
No, I think
No, there is. It doesn't mean as much. It just doesn't. I know as you get older, when you're a
wasn't
kid,
it great when we were all poor? No, I'm not.
I'm not saying that, but sport matters more when you're poor, 100%. When you go to a game and you've spent 125 quid on your ticket, 125 quid on your partner's ticket, you're very, you don't really care about the money.
All Ireland final tickets are expensive. People care about the result.
They do, but it's not. You can't compare an All Ireland final and an Ireland rugby game. It's not the Six Nations after. It just doesn't matter as much to people anymore.
Well, I think because we couldn't win the tournament, that was the
and we've become quite good as well. We're expecting to, like, for example, the Wales game,
but not much on the line. After we lost to France, I think if we had been within, if the final game had been for a Grand Slam, the atmosphere would have been great.
Yeah, it would have been great, but it doesn't really excuse. Now, in fairness, like the Wales game, they scored a try straight away. It was over straight away. But it doesn't really excuse. The Scotland game was on a knife edge for much of it, somewhat. To a degree, it was a bit of a contest.
It wasn't really.
The three games I was at were complete non-events as well.
Our coffees are outside if you want to run and get them. I'm going to do the coming up while it's happening. Stephen Hunt is going to join us in 1 second. We're going to talk rugby with Evie and Riley. Sports pages at 8:30. We've got... that's it, right in front of the camera. After that, we've got live sounds of the studio this morning. Emma Byrne at 8:50 is going to talk about the various things going on with women's football at the moment. Willa Callan at 9:10 talking hurling, and then Damien Delaney at 9:30. But at 7:43, go on, limbo in underneath it. No, just walk straight across. Okay, good man, Johnny.
We need a coffee.
I'm delighted to say Stephen Hunt is with us this morning, who I hope has also had his morning coffee. Stephen, good morning to you.
Morning, guys. How you doing?
Are you a coffee drinker?
Oh, I am. 3 before midday, and then if I'm on the road, maybe one about 5 o'clock, and that's me done for the day then.
I bet you've got a fancy machine at home, do you?
Of course I do.
You have to have a fancy machine. The difference in
good coffee.
The Ireland of the 80s, when we were winning Triple Crowns and all that, and the coffee of now, like Dublin is probably as good a place to get coffee, I'd say, as anywhere in the world, isn't it?
Oh, I don't know. Hunty's travelled the world more than we have, I'd say.
Is it Hunty?
Ireland, Italy is obviously very good. Macedonia was good, I think, if I'm right in saying. Montenegro was good. There you go.
Right, excellent.
The views were good in Montenegro as well, may I add.
Right.
Wow. We can only only allude to what you're talking about
Ireland
there.
International, sorry. We were with Ireland. We always used to go for a coffee if we could have a stroll in a quiet place and take in the views.
Right, old historic Montenegro. Must check it out. Must stick it on the list of places to go. Stephen, there's a good bit of crack in the papers this morning where Keith Andrews did a proper press conference before an Ireland match for the first time really in a long time, and he was asked about Roy Keane calling him a bullshitter. And in fairness to Keith Andrews, he just played it with a straight bat and went, that had no impact on me at all. After my family, this is the only thing that I care about and that I'm most passionate about. When you're in camp and someone says stuff about you, how easy is it actually not to get a little bit sidetracked by it? So what would it have been like when Roy did that interview, I think it was with the Sunday Independent a couple of years ago, and called Keith Andrews a bullshitter? Would the team have talked about it? Would people have been surprised that it came up? Would it have rippled at all?
I think, listen, there would have been a good giggle last night around the table, and once it gets out this morning, the players will be obviously on Keith's back, probably giving him a bit of stick. But listen, anyone that knows Keith Andrews, he's fairly stubborn himself. So he'll have a job to do. Obviously, he'll be doing, and he'll get on with it.
He was cutting his teeth in media. He had a show here with us, and he was obviously on Sky all the time as well, and was doing really well, and had become an excellent co-commentator. And he killed it. He knocked it all on the head. He could have easily kept going with Sky doing Championship and co-com on the Premier League, but he decided he was going to give this his full go, which is, I think, pretty impressive. And obviously we know Keith a little bit, not very well, but a little bit from his time with us, and always found him to be great to deal with. The furthest thing from a bullshitter you would ever actually find, someone who was thoughtful about what they wanted and who was very determined to kind of keep learning and acquiring new skills. What's your experience of him?
Yeah, 100% that. Keith is focused on whatever he does. When he done media, he would obviously do a lot of good prep for his work he was doing. He was well educated when it comes to getting in front of the camera and having the stats ready and having everything ready in his favour. And again, the key word, he's knocked the media on the head to do this, which will tell you all about it. He was completely focused on Ireland, completely focused on improving himself as a coach. He's got lots to learn. He's, I think, over the past couple of years, probably been approached for other jobs as well and turned them down on the basis of he's committed to Ireland. So he's in a really good place. They deservedly got a new contract for themselves. Roy is now media in the UK. He's taken over. He's a sensation to a certain degree. So maybe Roy should stick to that as well and be what he is. And he's doing a good job of that too in the media. So
this is the thing, though, that this is why people, I guess, like, love the Daily Mail app or whatever. It's just this stuff sells. Whereas, like, as you say, Keith does his research. He's an erudite kind of judge of the game. Goes in. He's a very good co-commentator, as Ger says. He's a very good analyst. People want to listen to the sound bites of Roy Keane, who, to my mind, and I think this is what Keith was bringing up at the time, like, which I couldn't get over. How could Roy Keane preside over an Irish team who were so anathema to the way that Roy Keane himself played? And I think he was right to be called out on that at the time, because Roy Keane was presided over a regime where our midfielders ran away from the ball.
Yeah, you're even losing me now. But yes, in terms of Roy as a player, 100% one of the best players for Ireland ever. As a coach, he's been successful too, in fairness to Roy. He's had some good times at Sunderland, some good moments. But right now, Roy is going one way, and that is to be a pundit for the rest of his life. He's very good at it and controls everything over here. He was different to what they had, so he's come along at the right time, Roy, to be a success in the media, and good luck to him.
I don't know. Is he very good at it though? Like, he's obviously,
I think he is.
Box office. What's he offering though? Apart from he's got to work hard.
Entertainment, Johnny.
They want entertainment, but eventually that runs out.
It doesn't though. It turns out it doesn't run out. People will always want entertainment, and you can get the Monday Night Football stuff.
Yeah. Guys, do you actually think Roy Keane is like that offset? He's not. Like,
exactly.
He's a completely different character. So there's other words for that. He's an actor. Roy is an actor. He's done a very good job at it the last couple of years, and he knew what was needed to be a success at the time. So that probably makes him a clever guy as well.
You've nailed it there, because like, he's such a compelling guy, and the more the more you're in the role he's in, the more you're kind of you change because of the reaction to the role you're in, and the more you play up to that act, even though it's not actually who you are. Because Roy Keane has so many qualities as well, but he does play up to it.
Okay, fair enough. So there's definitely an element of it, but we did see the bit where the fans outside were looking for photographs. He wasn't acting then, and that was the same kind of response he was having to, why are you picking Fred? Like, some of it is definitely he's self-aware, I would argue, but some of it I think is genuine kind of bamboozlement at what's going on. I think he was completely wrong about Keith Andrews.
Where does the bullshitter thing come from? Like, because
Keith Andrews had been given out.
How does that make him a bullshitter? Like?
Well, because I think one of the things that made Keane is the fact that he is so competitive, and if you're on the outside pissing in, well, then you're the enemy. And for that little period of time, he was the enemy. I mean, you couldn't say he is.
Why did he call him a bullshitter? Excuse me, I can't remember. Why was he? What was the reason why he had a go at Keith?
Well, we didn't get a follow-up question in the interview to pinpoint specifically, but Keith, I think, was making the point that Johnny was making, that Ireland's midfield was underperforming, and that the players didn't seem to be acquiring new skills when Roy was part of the backroom team. That, if I'm right in the terms of the time, we tried to look up some of the stuff that Keith would have been talking about at the time, and it was that Ireland's midfield seemed to be underperforming in the Martin O'Neill era, and obviously Roy took his time to deliver his riposte, which was a couple of years later.
Hunty as well, we've had like there's so much, Robbie Keane is brought up time and time again. We've never replaced Robbie Keane, but like Roy Keane was a generational talent, like literally ran games. He embodied everything about midfield play, and as a consequence, it's hard to see now that our midfielders, Josh Cullen hailed as the saviour or whatever by Dunphy today, that Roy Keane couldn't get anything out of our midfielders is notable for me.
Yeah, I think Roy has a way of coaching, managing that it's along the lines you can see it. It's Brian Clough, it's Sir Alex Ferguson's Martin O'Neill. I don't think they were all ever fantastic coaches. They were good managers, great managers, and yes, they might have been better than what I think they are, but I don't think they were the modern version of a Brendan Rodgers, who's renowned for being a coach, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, somebody thought it was a good idea to put Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane together. That's what I couldn't. So Roy Keane is not a coach. Martin O'Neill is not a coach. But they were a dream team.
They had other coaches, though.
They did, but like Gubby and whatever. And
listen, I don't think they're no fools either. But they're not a modern day coach. They're clearly, both of them are very good thinkers of the game. Very good in terms of trying to get in people's heads and motivate people. I think that was clear to see. The modern day coaches now, I don't know how good a manager at the moment is a coach, but I do know Keith Andrews is a very good coach. I had him for a couple of weeks when I was still playing at MK Dons, and he surprised me how good he was for such an early coach and how demanding he was of the player. So I do know he can coach, Keith, to be fair to him, and I think he's done the right decision in what he's decided to do, and is very dedicated to it. Listen, I'll have conversations with Keith and the manager about players I think should be being picked for Ireland, and we'll get heated, we'll get constructive with it, and then we'll forget about it and move on.
Are they all your players that you want picked? Is that how that works?
Yeah. Sure.
We talk about it for 20 minutes and agree you were right.
Well, hopefully in a year's time, when them players develop, they'll be in, and then it's the right time, in their opinion, to be in. And I'll never tell a manager that they should be playing. I'll always give a constructive view on why I think they should be in the squad, and then you can make your own decision based on the training. So a manager is a manager. I'm a football agent, so I'm not a manager. I don't pick players. I always, of course, like anyone, would be constructive with my players. But I do know, going back to Keith, he is actually a very good coach and is keen to learn, keen to engage with other coaches as well in the UK to learn off them. So it's a good thing.
Talk to us a little bit about that generation of young players who are coming through at the moment, because we're very excited by the quality of kids who are at between kind of 16 and 19 in the Ireland setup at the moment, and even just the way Chidozie Ogbene has managed to break through. Like, he's still playing League One football. The hope would be that he's playing Championship football next year, and that he gets an opportunity week in, week out against a slightly higher calibre of opposition to do what he's doing at the moment for Ireland. So what's your assessment of where we are with regards to the talent pool?
Yeah, the talent pool, I watched it in the 19s last week. They were actually very unlucky not to get something out of the game against England. The referee bottled it. I do think, again, you go back to 2 years ago, Joe, when we're talking about the Triparts, Adam Idas, the Conleys of the world, there's going to be bumps in the road for them players. The Jason Knights of these days are almost like a throwback to an old-fashioned player to a certain degree with a good skill set. So there's going to be bumps in the road for these players along the way. It's important that we don't hype them up too much, let them focus on the football. Like Festi at Derby can be, I said to someone last week, he can be unplayable some days and can be outrageously good, but then on some other days you wouldn't pick him on the bench. He can be that bad. So I've seen a lot of them over the last couple of years. So they do need time, these boys. They do need guidance, and I think they're going in the right direction. I'm really pleased in terms of Jason Knight's got a lot of games under his belt. Ogbene, to a certain degree, probably needs to go play higher. He's had a year of it before in a struggling team. If you get him in a team, you can see he's very explosive, very random in his play, but that makes him dangerous. So I am excited for the young boys coming through now, yes, for sure.
What do you think Festi's best position is?
Just let him loose and let him play on the right wing. Keep it simple for him and say, right, listen, just get it and run, because he is so direct. He is very, very explosive, but he's got to find he's got to find a brain cell along the way as well, and realise that the level he's playing at, he has to keep the ball sometimes in certain areas. And if he does that, then he'll get punished going the other way against better teams.
Has he not improved in that, Hunty,
though? He's still got a long way to go, in my opinion, in terms of controlling his positional, his sense of danger where he sees danger. But having said that, his speed is so quick. He recovers with his speed. He relies on his pace to get him out of trouble to a certain degree. And listen, he'll have a year or two developing. But if you're bringing on somebody within the Irish setup to have an impact, then definitely Festy could be one for sure.
And just the number of Irish players who are looking to Europe, you know, we see with Josh Cullen at Anderlecht how well that's worked for him in terms of his international career, and hopefully from a club perspective as well into the future. For Festy heading to Italy, is that something that you would recommend? Is that something that as an agent you've started to look at for your players, or does it really depend on the individual character and whether or not he's going to be able to make it when he goes somewhere like Italy?
I think every character is different. You clearly want to have an English-speaking, Irish-speaking language going over there if you can with the club. Also, there's a case for, is he going to Udinese, I think it is, to come back to Watford? They're both the same clubs. Have they bought him with the idea of bringing him back to Watford in a certain time? So they'll know the plan, what it is for him over there. Everyone's different. There's obviously a few boys going to Italy, which the language will be difficult for them to speak, which makes it harder. But at the same time, the education of football will be amazing, and the detail they'll learn in a year or two over there will be different to what they'd learn in England, or Ireland for that matter. So it'll be good. Only time will tell. And yes, it is a bit of a gamble, but it's a bit of a gamble going to England as well. So looking forward to seeing the results over the next couple of years.
Is there anybody else coming through at this stage who you think, yeah, I'd love to see them in the team at the moment?
Listen, I'm not going to name names. I do think the current proper players needed a couple of years to bed into it. I think, in fairness to Troy Parrott, he's had a resurgence this year in terms of playing games. He's found himself a little home in MK Dons, who are doing very well. He's played for the middle for most of it, and the manager there has good belief in him. So I think he's in the right place now. If MK Dons could get promoted, then I'm sure you'd have Parrott back next year to play in the Championship. So it's exciting times. I think the manager deserves good credit for he did stick to his principles. Keith is right; it's very easy to change up. But if you look at our second goal on Saturday, that actually come from a direct piece of play, and Matt Doherty being on the front foot for the second ball. So I do think the right mix of football, sometimes short, most of the time short, and then if we need to go along a little bit, then we can do. So I think we're in a good place. Just waiting that year, you know what I mean, to try and get some competitive games. It's the problem to motivate the players. Won't be an issue, but the fans were there Saturday. I was there myself. It was a good atmosphere, full house nearly, and it was good to be there.
Just on Paris, Hunty, I'd say maybe his highest point as an Irish kind of international in terms of underage was when they as today when they're away to Sweden in the 21s. His performances for Ireland against Sweden under Kenny in both Tala and Sweden were sensational, and I think Kenny said at half time in the Tala game Ireland were losing, and another player relayed that Kenny basically said, Troy, we just need you here, we need you to do it, and he just turned it on and they won. I think they won 4-1 from him, 1-0 down. He got an unbelievable, I think he got 2 goals in Sweden. One of them was just unbelievable quality. How good could he be? Or are we worried about, is there a limit to what Troy can do here? Does he lack something that means that he hasn't maybe made... it's not that long ago people were constantly asking Mourinho in press conferences, why isn't he playing?
No, I think with Troy, his physical attributes from under 15, 16 were very much... He was ahead of the game, and he had a good stride on him. He was very strong. He's very well able to carry the ball, and it was clear he was going past people for fun. But as you get older and you get into the first team, then players become obviously better, to become aware of his skill set quite easily. They're able to read it. So I think Troy's had to learn the game a little bit over the last year and a half. Some very much bad at times, but maybe a good thing for his long-term career, that he hasn't had the success that he thought he'd have. Not so much him, to be fair, comparing him, but what other people thought he would have early on. he needed to learn the game. He needed to play as a centre forward. He can clearly play left, right, number 10, possibly even number 8 as he gets older. I think he can make them long bust and run. So I think we're in a good place with him, and hopefully it continues.
Same was said of Adam Ida as well, like that. And that is the pitfalls for a lot of young players.
Yeah, well, the setback might not be the worst thing for either of them. They'll come back stronger for it.
It's just
Stephen, good stuff. Thanks a million. Cheers.
Guys, I gotta go. Yeah,
Thanks a million. School run, no hassles. Thanks.
I guess it's just physically that, like, you can be ahead of players, your peers at that age, and they catch up and then they actually pass you out in terms of going to senior football, which I haven't seen that much Troy Parrott this season, but like he does have that kind of real quality around the box. If I think tonight could be big for him, just reading in between the lines from Andrew's press conference, there's a lot of Troy Parrott.
I don't think he's going to start.
I think he's going to play a reasonable role anyway.
Like 45 minutes.
Yeah, or half an hour or something like that. I think they're going to give him a reasonable chance because, like Andrews, just the way he spoke about all the difference in he's doing so well in training. And, I don't know if you read anything into him appearing in press conferences, but I definitely read into the way Andrews spoke about him. We need to also see players like Troy play tonight because we're playing, with all due respect to Lithuania, regardless of what the result is, we need to see other players.
We do need to see other players, but if you are the management team, this is one of those rare occasions where actually the victory and the momentum from the victory and that is actually important.
It is, but you've got to manage that as well as bring in other players. Like, regardless of if you play two different teams tonight, two different halves, we should still be beating Lithuania. Should
still be beaten is not something that really surely at this point in our lives we're like, okay,
one defeat in 11, scoring 10 goals in 5 or whatever it is.
Luxembourg beat us at home.
But they didn't beat us at home because there was nobody there. Like, it's not, that's not home. It's not.
It was.
Well, stats showed that it became irrelevant where you were playing. There's nobody at the game. It's all about that raucous Lansdowne atmosphere and not drinking pints.
Yeah. Okay. So we should tell you that League of Ireland Late Night is going international tonight from 10 o'clock.
Yes.
Looking back at the international window, Nathan, Johnny and Shane Keegan will be live on Twitter Spaces. We want to hear from you. It's our new digital phone-in. Check out Off the Ball Twitter from 10 o'clock tonight.
Yeah, so this is usually the refuge of League of Ireland D-gens, as I'd call them, calling in sometimes on their way home, sometimes on their way to the bar, sometimes on the 16 bus.
Sometimes you're in the bar.
But we'd like to see what the interest is tonight, because it's Ireland, it's box office, great ticket sales again. So go on to the Twitter Spaces. I think it's a brilliant format, I have to say. It's been very little used in Ireland so far.
Yeah.
But it gives everyone the opportunity to ring in, and hopefully we'll have lots to talk about. And Nathan, I mean, he deserves a lot of plaudits for his prediction that Thierry Henry would ultimately inspire Ireland to turn the game around on Saturday.
I'm surprised he hasn't clipped that and put it up on social as look what I accurately
Is he
predicted.
that type?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
We know that. 3 minutes past 8 this morning. OTBAM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Richard Red Balls, how are you, Richard? Says singing songs at a match is something football crowds do, something rugby crowds try to distance themselves from.
Well, Swing Low Sweet Chariot at England games is still one of the most evocative tunes. I presume I don't know, the Fields of Athenry. Like, I have to say, the Ireland games I was at, the most common thing the fans were trying to engage in was a Mexican wave, and that's never a good sign.
No. The easiest way to deal with this is that you can't drink at your seat, but can drink as much as you please on the concourse, says Mark.
That's what they do in Gaelic games, to the best of my knowledge, and seems to work fine. And it also kind of brings up this sort of dilemma, like, should I be going to a game and just literally spend it indoors looking out a window at the game?
No, you shouldn't. You should definitely be in your seat.
But a lot of people aren't that interested. This is the thing. A lot of people are at these games. They're just there for the junket.
Well, the stadiums are big.
Yeah, they're big. Like, there's 50,000 people, give or take. A lot of them are sort of indifferent.
Aina, clearly from Galway, because it's a Galway name, says more money in the LOI can only be a good thing, especially outside of Dublin. If the Comers make a success out of Galway, which they have a habit of doing, it might open the floodgates for other clubs.
Yeah, the Comers have, one of the few billionaires in Ireland. So the money they've invested in Galway United is small by their standards, but really, really big by the standards of a League of Ireland First Division club. We've seen Dermot Desmond, Gareth Kelleher, Philip Doherty and Derry invest now in League of Ireland. And I think in terms of, it's never been a better time, or at least worse time, to invest in League of Ireland club, if that makes sense, because the players' values are going up a lot. The underage players, there's money coming through from the UEFA Conference League that makes it possible to break even comfortably if you run your budget properly, and hopefully in the near future we'll have proper prize money within the league itself.
Yeah, that would make a big difference.
The FEI is short of cash.
The problem with the rugby is its corporate nature, says Doombot. In the last 5 years, I've not been able to buy a single ticket. The only hope you have of getting a ticket is through a business or corporation.
I don't think that's true though, because like
For the Six Nations, it is.
Well, I sourced tickets for the Wales game readily enough through a friend buying basically online. So it's not.
So your friend bought tickets on Ticketmaster for the Wales game?
It wasn't Ticketmaster, but he
Was it
got
not through a club?
He got them readily enough. I don't think it was through a club. I tried
Text them there and make sure that this is.
I try not to deal with Ticketmaster. I find their pricing is just so unfair. So it wasn't through Ticketmaster. But the way the tickets were bought, you had to buy Italian tickets as well. It was like a package, but they were both face value, and we bought it literally over a pint.
All right.
Which is ironic given the conversation we're having.
Yeah, I shouldn't be drinking. It's just bad. Here's Damien Delaney talking about the evolution of Ireland's style under Stephen Kenny. Have a look.
I think he has come away from his early total football, slow play where teams can drop into a shape and we find it hard to break them down. There's definitely more of an element of directness. And by the way, that's brilliant. I think it's great. And he's utilising Ogbene's physicality and his power and his pace of running in behind. Balls get spun down the side more. Callum Robinson gives you, or gave us on the weekend, a real direct threat. So he's got direct players who run in behind at the top of the pitch. Those games where he played with, Troy Parrott, they're all players that like to come and link it. Aaron Connolly, I mean, I'm not sure how you describe him. He's a little bit of everything, but he's not a direct, pacey runner in behind. He likes to come inside and link it. He's put players in the team that threaten him behind. And we are not turning that opportunity down, as we saw with the equalising goal. I think it was Matt Doherty arrived to pick up a knockdown, and there was nothing fancy. He just helped it into the corner. It wasn't a particularly good ball, but it was just a kind of spinning a ball down the side, and Benny made something of it. And I think that's really smart. His point, I think early on in the campaign, there was maybe we're kind of a little bit stodgy, and we passed the ball, and we were trying to be too intricate and trying to find players in pockets, and it all got a little bit slow and predictable. But now we're playing some nice football, and we are passing it, but we're also not turning down the opportunity of the players that we have in Robinson and Ogbene, which is just balls just spun down the side. And then the two midfield players are competent passers of the ball. I think Jeff Hendricks is in the middle of a renaissance. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen Jeff play as well with the ball. Even when he was playing at his peak in Burnley, he was always just kind of, he was in the team for legs to get up, and Burnley played a 4-5-1, and he could link the midfield to the attack very, very quickly, and he was always very, very competent. But I'm seeing a level of composure in Jeff's play at the moment now, where he's playing a couple of passes into pockets and sliding balls down the side and picking people out. So, they're both very, very competent passers of the ball, and as I said, it just seems to be a nice little thing happening at the moment.
Right.
He just, I think, in fairness to DD, right, he was all for Kenny at the start. Then he sort of called out some of the aspects of the first, whatever amount of games, which obviously wasn't good. And now he's basically extolling the positives of the change. I think he's been on top of the narrative pretty much with Kenny all along. I actually do. I think he's right, because we don't that really, really extreme passing outside the back in an alternative world, right? Ronaldo scores that penalty, which how many times out of 10 does Ronaldo score a penalty, even against Gavin Zunas?
7.5, I think.
Is it that? It's more than that.
I don't know.
The average penalty taker scores, I think, roughly 7 out of 10. So I'm presuming that. Anyway, Ronaldo should score the penalty. Ireland get tanked 3-0, and everyone is like, "What were you doing passing the ball out from the back?" Since then,
84%.
84. Ronaldo, that's high. I think the average is roughly 7. Anyway, so after that, Bazunu has an unbelievable game, obviously afterwards, but Ireland played very well, and so on and so forth. We did change, though. We did change to be a little bit more pragmatic, I think, in possession. And whoever that's down to.
I remember having a long conversation with you when Kenny arrived.
I don't like the way this is going.
And I was like, we're going to play 3 at the back. This is definitely going to happen. You're like, under no circumstances will he ever play 3 at the back. I have watched Stephen Kenny play from the time that he was a 22-year-old manager of Longford Town and Tala and those boys, and he brought them through, and he never once played.
First of all, he
got
the job at Longford at 26.
Whatever.
Secondly, this is not what happened. You would have said, would 3 at the back suit us, because it might suit the players.
We have to play 3 at the back. It's the only way we can possibly make it.
Yeah, and I would, in fairness, I would have said, well, Kenny's never played 3 at the back. I don't see it at all. It will never happen.
Exactly.
That's probably what I said.
Exactly.
But I know he did not plan this. I know it wasn't planned. Now, he claims,
he has an
the
open
England
mind.
game and the game in Wembley, that made... Now, I think it might have had more to do with Andy Barry. I don't know. I think Kenny does like to try to say this.
Whatever happened, however they
thought
got
it?
there, it was the right thing. Well, who would have thought it anyway? Look at our playing staff.
We do look so... The three at the back,
You know?
it does really suit us at the moment. And I think partly it is because that third centre-back is now willing to take chances and press high and even get on the ball. And
John Egan is doing what John Egan did for Sheffield United in the Premier League when they were at their best.
they were playing three at the back.
Yeah.
And
So it just made sense. And I think that, like, the whole notion that it's only been outside forces that have forced Kenny's hand is wrong. I think that he's open-minded. And you talked to Vinnie Perth about what they would have done over the years, and, like, they would have gone and been happy to be super defensive in away games in Europe to, like, make sure that they lock everything down. It's not like this whole notion that they were only ever going to play this stodgy passing stuff wasn't actually correct. The team may not have fully... The team was a new team with players that they were trying shuffling through. It's like a Allianz League campaign for a team who is either brand new or incredibly experienced. You shuffle a bunch of players through to see what else is there. The shit sticks or it doesn't. Now, unfortunately, his results were so bad, his job was at risk.
Yeah.
And that was the added pressure to this whole thing.
You know, the beauty of this is as well, you go out there with a plan, but you go on a journey and things happen and things change the course of history. So Gavin Bazunu, like,
absolutely,
where he makes that pass, and was it Hendricks? Like, again, Hendrick was kind of like, it was actually a borderline decision. I think it went to VAR, but anyway, it goes to a penalty. But, like, in terms of the history of Irish football, Gavin Bazunu, as a young kid, to do that and all the pressure on him, and then just turn around and say, whatever, I'm going to save this penalty from Ronaldo. I think that was like a defining moment in Irish sport, where it's like,
that,
wow.
You know, that would have been... Ronaldo obviously does set the record later in the game.
Yeah, whatever.
that was his record-setting moment.
Because I was at the game then against Serbia, where Bazunu and Omoma Medele's performances, I think, completely lifted the nation. It was like, and we were battered in that game, but then the crowd just stuck with them, could see Bazunu was amazing that night. Omoma Medele was amazing. And the two, like, young kids, I think they were, you know, out in the pitch together beforehand at one of the subsequent games or whatever, chatting away, and there was a photo of the two of them. It's like, this is the future of Ireland, and they're not burdened by the crap of how Ireland football has been and downtrodden for so many years in terms of players told not to play. But at the same time, Bazunu doesn't make that pass now, particularly not against somebody. He just does not make that pass to Hendrick, I think, in a game of that nature, and I'm not sure why that has changed. Maybe no, it's okay. And by the way, Kelleher on the ball on Saturday, I thought was so good. Like, when the ball is at his feet.
Is Bazunu still our number one though?
I haven't seen in Kelleher anything to suggest that he's Gavin Bazunu, if that makes sense. Whereas when you look at Bazunu, it's just like, you're just off the charts. He saved a penalty in Turner's Cross at, I think he was 16, against Kieran Saldier, and anyone who was there that night is like, and this was an amazing penalty save. It wasn't straight at him. It was like, oh, okay, all right.
We've got to take a quick break. It's 13 minutes past 8 here this morning. If you want to get involved, we'd love to hear from you. You can leave a comment on the YouTube stream, or, of course, you can text us on 0879 180 180. OTBAM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Evie Riley is standing by. We'll get to her next.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Louise Quinn, we've had your housemates on. We've been waiting to get you on.
I know, it's all they talk about. It's all they've been bragging about. And I've been waiting.
Keep up to date with the latest WSL action.
If you actually don't have the investment and the money, it is going to make teams suffer a little bit.
And the biggest interviews.
It is something I haven't overly spoken about. But, you know, at the time, it definitely was something that I was disappointed about.
Subscribe to the Koi Gig podcast stream on the OTB Sports app now.
With prices from only €289 for fully comprehensive car insurance, everyone's making the jump to getsetgo.ie. New business policies only. Prices subject to minimum premiums. T's and C's apply. MCL Insurance Services Limited Trading is getsetgo.ie is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
All right, it's 14 minutes past 8 here this morning on OTBAM, and the Galway takeover continues. I'm delighted to say Evie Riley is with us. Evie, good morning to you. How are you getting on?
Hi, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, very good. So you made your Ireland debut at the weekend. What about the actual experience itself was something that might have surprised you in the aftermath? You were like, oh, I didn't realise it was going to feel like that, or it was going to go that way.
Yeah, it was just surreal standing there, like singing the anthem. That's when it really hit, and the attendance was crazy. Like we had a record crowd there on Saturday, so that was just something else.
That makes a big difference as well, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, completely. Like it just really, the atmosphere was just insane. I couldn't get over it.
When did you know you were getting picked?
So we found out on Monday as a team all together. So I knew for the full week then, and I had to try to keep it quiet.
And plenty of time to get tickets for family and friends?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And is that something that you're going to have to get used to? The hassle of like, here, get me a ticket for this, as opposed to like, just get your own tickets. Come on.
Well, we get given a few tickets, so the select few get them ones, and then my friends travelled up from Ballinasloe, and then a few college friends came as well. So I just had to let them know to get their hands on some as well.
What was your background in terms of getting into rugby in Ballinasloe? I know it has a bit of a kind of a rugby heritage there, and yourself and obviously Bevan as well. It's obviously a big enough thing in the town.
So we all kind of started out playing GA, and then my dad was involved in the mini rugbies in Ballinasloe, and my brother's only a year ahead of me, and my eldest brother were playing as well. And it was community games. There was like a 12-a-side team, and the rule was you needed 2 girls. So my dad was coaching and obviously volunteered myself. So I just kept playing after then, played with the boys for a while, and then there was an under-15s team set up, and myself and Bevan joined the same year. And then loads of girls just started transferring in from GAA, and we just had a really good setup there.
I'm really interested in that as a young girl in Ireland, because my sister would have come through totally the Gaelic Games in a big Gaelic Games community, but there's no rugby at all. I mean, there's a soccer team. Rugby just doesn't really exist. I mean, unless you went to Craig's, which is obviously developing. But how does rugby sell itself to the young girl who has other options, and rugby wouldn't necessarily have the best reputation in terms of getting any kid, male or female, into?
I think what attracted me to it was just that it's for everyone, and it's a very easy game to pick up, and it's also very exciting. Like, I feel like with GAA, not that it's not for everyone, but like I feel like there's more opportunities with rugby at the moment, and also it's just a very disciplined sport. Like, you wouldn't have any of that chatting back to the ref or anything like that. So it's also great for like life skills and things like that. That's what kind of attracted me to it, and I ended up quitting football and just sticking with rugby.
The collisions, that's what you're talking about, isn't it? It's for everybody. You can smash somebody, and you're allowed to.
Half now, in fairness.
Yeah. I was starting to do that on the Gaelic field, and I was like, okay, it's time to leave.
Getting in trouble for it.
As a scrum half, when did you realise that? Like, what age when you were like, wow, I really, really enjoy passing this ball? Like,
I think I always played scrum half. I played on the wing a bit as well, but I suppose I was quite small when I was younger, and that was kind of where the small people were put. And also my brother was also a scrum half, and he plays professionally now for Connacht. So I suppose just watching him be a scrum half, I was a year younger and wanted to do exactly the same thing as him at the time. So I suppose that's why I stuck with the scrum half position.
When you're coming through, right, your pathway, I think, is the sevens first, and then ultimately you make it to the 15s team. When did you get your first sevens contract? How did that all come about? And how important for you in terms of like, actually, this is something I want to pursue as my main thing? When that decision got made and that pathway was there, when did that penny begin to drop kind of properly?
So I was always playing sevens under 18s. That was the setup there. So I was playing with Connacht 15 aside into pros, and then I also played with their sevens team. So then under 18 I would have been on the team, and then when I moved up to Dublin for college, I was offered a sevens contract there. So we're based out in Abbottstown in HBC. So I joined, I think it was October last year. That's when I signed my contract. So I've been with them like over a year and a half now.
So I think I'm right in saying you're in UCD, is that right?
Yeah, UCD, yeah.
And how do you balance those? Like, it's tricky for full-time athletes to make sure that they get the rest. It's tricky for students to make sure they're doing all the work they're supposed to be doing. Sometimes on purpose they're not doing it, and sometimes they're just not able to do it. How do you manage to keep that balance going?
I have great friends in my course that always keep me in check. That's one of the main things there. But also, I suppose just I work better under pressure, and when I'm given a certain amount of time to do something, I kind of do it to my best of my ability while I can. Then if I'm under pressure, like I don't really have an easy fix. I'm still struggling, but I'm almost there now. So
This is your final year, is that right?
yeah, final year. So I think it's like 2 months left.
Right.
Creeping up.
To ask the parental question, what's next? What are you going to do next?
Play for Ireland.
You're out. Oh no, I don't really know yet. So I've applied for a couple of masters and undergrads. So I might just go straight into them, or else just play rugby for a year and work part time. I'm not quite sure yet.
Right, like how feasible is it for somebody like you to become a pro rugby player in the next 10 years?
I suppose like we're not pro at the moment, and it's something that like every girl would want to be, but that's not our focus at the moment. Our focus is just getting better as a team, and I'm sure it will happen down the line. But at the moment, it's our focus is the Six Nations and qualifying for the next World Cup. So I'm sure it'll happen down the line, but at the moment it's not.
Because there is a pathway where you could spend some time in England or even France. Is that something that you've thought about? Like, is that, yeah,
I'd love to play in the Prem, but I'm also really enjoying sevens at the moment, and I like the way I can intertwine between sevens and 15s and also play AIL here in Ireland. So at the moment I'm going to stick to that, but yeah, I'm sure it's something I would look to do down the line. Yeah,
you've a lot to mix in. So how do you what's the extent of Ireland training? I mean, obviously you're pining for a professional game, but how much can you guys actually do, considering the players have so much else going on?
For 15s, yeah, we come into camp on a Wednesday for the Six Nations, and then we'll be training Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then match Saturday, or some of the fixtures are on a Sunday as well. So I'm not quite sure what the other girls do, but they just get time off work. And yeah, that's just the sacrifice we make.
And like last weekend, were you expecting to start? I know you said you got an early nod, but
definitely not. No, I was so surprised seeing my name there. But yeah, a huge honour.
It must be some experience. Your family are up, coming from the west of Ireland, playing in front of a record crowd. As you say, the national anthem, and I guess were you happy with your performance in the end?
Yeah, like I had a few mistakes. I'm sure we all did, but yeah, I was ultimately like, despite the loss, like it was still a very special day for me, and I made sure that I enjoyed it and like relished it all in, because you don't get your first cap twice. So yeah, it was very special. I had my grandparents there, my cousins, friends from home, college. Like it was just a very special day. Like unfortunately we didn't get the win, but yeah, I'm very grateful that it was a home match for my first cap.
That's class, that whole kind of that journey that you've been on, and your brother being a professional rugby player as well, you kind of fully understand exactly what the requirements are to make it to the very top level. To go back to the game itself, in the ebb and flow of the match, were there points where you thought, actually we're gonna continue this momentum on and win the game, or did it always feel like it was on a bit of a knife edge?
Yeah, I thought we had patches of really good play. Once we got the ball quick, like we showed really good speed, and when we worked it out to the edges, and we were making really good gain line. But I suppose we thought we were going to win. Like that's the mindset you're going to have playing the game. Like when you're on top, like you obviously want to stay there. But unfortunately, it was just towards the second half, Wales were just a bit more dominant. We had barely any possession, which is something we'll look to improve. But yeah, it was just unfortunate in the end. But there was a lot of positives to take from the match, and it's just important to look at them as well as our work-ons.
France also had a record crowd for their game last weekend, and obviously we know the investment that they've made and the professionalism that they have and the numbers they have. So it is it's quite the task you have ahead of you this week.
Yeah, definitely. Like France, they're on a completely different stage of their journey than we are. They're preparing for a World Cup, so that it is going to be a huge challenge for us, but we're just going to have to relish the opportunity to play against one of the best teams and just try to put it up to them as well.
What's the positives of this new coaching regime?
So we have Greg, Briggsy, Dave Gannon in there as well. Like it's a whole new environment, and they're very enthusiastic. like they're really encouraging us to play like exciting rugby and showcase our skills. So
which was evidence against Wales, like.
Yeah, so it is a great environment to be in, and we're just constantly striving to be better. It's not going to be a quick fix for us, it's a long-term project. But yeah, like I'm sure as the campaign moves on, that we'll hopefully be getting better and better and working towards the next World Cup.
Do you go into a game like France and with, hopefully your second cap, like do you go in with this fear, or are you just too young to even think about things like that?
Oh no, like I wouldn't say that at all. You still get nervous. I'm sure I will. I'm not one to get nervous prematurely, or else I won't be able to function for the week. But I feel like I have a lot of the nerves over me now. I'm saying that now, but I don't know what I'll be like. Hopefully come Saturday. But yeah, I suppose like I know what it's like being on the pitch now. It's just like any other game at rugby. It's only us inside the pitch line. So yeah, hopefully I'll be fine if I'm on then.
How does this group quantify success over the course of the Six Nations? Because it is a new group. It's not just a new management team; it's a new group of players as well. And you guys are taking possession of the jerseys and making sure that this is going to be your career as an Ireland player and as an Ireland team. What at the end of the Six Nations will you look back on and go, okay, we didn't get everything we wanted, but we got a lot of what we wanted? What would that be?
I suppose just making sure that we're all proud of the performances we put out. Making sure that we're all working hard, and that that it's not our skills letting us down, and that also that we're adapting to the new systems. Like I suppose coming away from each game saying like that game was better than the last, that's how you judge success. We just constantly want to strive to get better, so I suppose that's how we'll judge our success from this campaign.
Well, listen, we wish you the very best of luck. Congratulations on the first cap. Best of luck in the finals. Do you get any special dispensation for like, hey, look, I was really busy. I was playing for Ireland. Can I have an extra few weeks?
I hope so. I'm not really sure. I haven't requested at the moment, but hopefully it won't interfere too much. But I'm sure if it will, they'll be very accommodating. Please God.
Well, listen, best of luck with everything, Evie. Thanks a million for joining us.
Thanks, Evie.
That's Evie Riley there ahead of the game against France this weekend. So fingers crossed she's going to get picked again. I'd say she probably is.
Yeah, young scrum half. I must get into watching some of these games. I think I do wonder. I probably should have asked. Do some of the rugby team, are they envious of the football team has gotten? It seems like there's more of a hype around it the last few years. Like even though they haven't necessarily been all that good either. I mean, there just seems to be more.
You mean Vera Pauw's team?
Yeah, like a lot of chat about them, and there's a lot of interest in Tala, and obviously the women's rugby have had totally different issues in terms of rightly looking to progress the game here and so forth in the IRFU and so on. And I think the women's team has come through that.
Fundamentally were the same.
They were, yeah. Well, it's just maybe they've come through them faster, and I think the women's team in the football team is in a good place in that regard now. But yeah, I guess the France game is gonna the Wales game, as much as they were good, like they did end up like kind of surrendering badly in the second half. So I guess in a young coaching team, you don't want to get hockeyed either earlier on, because it can completely dent confidence.
Yeah, and it's going to be very hard for them not to get hockeyed by the French this weekend. So certainly people are going to need realistic expectations, and I suppose that's the point about what does success look like for this team. At the end of it, they feel like they're making progress. Some patterns of play are starting to emerge. You as a coaching ticket, I suppose, know who the core of the team is going to be into the future, and you start building with them and hoping that they're the ones that.
How proud must her dad be though to have you got to marvel at these families that's just so high achieving, and see the Eden Hazard's brother playing for Belgium the other night. Is it all about genetics, or how? Are you just brought up in a way where you're driven to be good at sport?
Isn't it interesting that herself and Bevan Parsons came through at the same time, in the same place, through the same kind of system, that they obviously were driving each other on?
Yeah, Ireland is so mad as well. We don't think about it enough in terms of so many options for young kids. And we look at, if you look at the Monaghan Dublin game, I was watching the Monaghan game on Sunday, and I was just thinking, like, Monaghan people are absolutely infatuated with Gaelic football. Same as in Mayo. And, like, other sports probably really, really struggle there, despite the fact that there are people who love them.
Roddy,
do you know what I mean?
Roddy, the Rod Squad, Monaghan.
Yeah, like Monaghan United sadly is no more. And, I think Owen has done bits of work on Kilkenny, how, like, Gaelic football can't get a look in. And then for a girl like her who's basically really encouraged to get into sport, but decides that, like, what if she never played rugby? You know what I mean? Like, if she were my sister, for example, in Newbridge, she's not going to play rugby. She's going to play Gaelic football. She played Gaelic football, but because she's a background in it, she's kind of compelled. Most girls do not play rugby, like, at a young age. I mean, how many of them even play sport? It's on their eyes. But because she's introduced to it, then she's actually playing, like, scrum half for Ireland now.
Yeah, and I think if you look back at the team that made the breakthrough, a bunch of those players had played Gaelic football to a very high level. Niamh Briggs played for Waterford. Like, there was a load of those who actually had been really high achieving Gaelic footballers who then transitioned in. Alison Miller, I think, was the same. And rugby has got quite good at that talent identification, where there'll be a combine style day, you come, and if you're any good you get pushed into a club and you get coaching. And that was the opportunity that rugby had, that they blew over the last decade, to build on that generation of Irish women who won a Grand Slam and who beat the All Blacks and who reached the World Cup semi-final. No, they were like, well, this is grand, everything's working fine. What do we need to do here?
The wider question, though, male or female, in when that player who's like a really, really high quality player, when he or she decides, like, I'm not going to play 3 sports anymore, and then you get pressure from the for example, the soccer club, and the role of the parents is so important. It really, really is.
Yeah, I do think this conversation comes down to, stop forcing people to play one sport. And that's not really what's happening. What they're saying is you could actually be elite in this sport if you were to concentrate on it at this point.
You don't want to burn them out either.
No, you don't.
It's an interesting conversation, I think.
Yeah, and and I'm not talking about 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds, but when you get to 13, 14, you kind of need to decide which one you're going to go for to be the elite.
And I still think the kid who...
There's nothing wrong with the kids at that age wanting to try and see if they can make it.
Well, I still think the kid who pucks the ball off the wall both sides, like, every night, or the kid who has a football at home, has a better chance. I think if there are kids listening in, a lot of it is down to what you do, like, yourself as working at it. And I still remember Johnny MacDonald talking about the Belvedere under-15s that he coached, and he asked them had they have football at home, and half of them didn't. So that's kind of the generation as well, where it's not just turn up a training and do it. You kind of have to be obsessive maybe to get to the next level.
Yeah, 100%. Right, 8:32 this morning. OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Let's bring you the newspapers.
There are so many idiots out there, so many spoofers. There's a lot of horse.
I think he's a total spoofer.
What do you mean a spoofer?
He's just bullshit.
No, Eamon, come on, don't be, no, I'm not having that, no.
Yeah, that's a very appropriate clip to play you in with this morning. We can start with otbsports.com. Episode 10 of the football pod is up now. Dubs shot down, McCurry Magic. Final predictions before the championship starts. Jeff Hendrick is going through a renaissance. It's Damien Delaney talking on the show last night. Austin Gleeson's moment of madness. This is the hurling pod. We'll talk about that in a few minutes' time. And Roman Abramovich subject to poisoning after Ukraine peace talks. So he was in Kiev, and he ended up showing some of the signs of poisoning. That's the story that's broken in the last 24 hours, even less than that, last 12 hours or so. No one quite knows what the rationale behind the suspected poisoning was.
Suspected being the word, and maybe
he collateral damage to somebody else who was trying to be poisoned? Was the one of the papers was like, he was definitely the main target for this, but
there's ambiguity, and also just it's hard to.
They're normally good at poisoning, don't they know what they're doing when it comes to that?
It's hard to trust information. I'm not saying it's hard to trust information in the media in the West at times, but with this maybe there is a little bit of caution. Didn't look great now in the photos, to be fair.
I'm not saying, I don't think they're faking that part of it. But
he's lived a very good life to this point, but I hope he doesn't deserve to be poisoned.
And who was he representing in the talks? Like, what was the,
I think with somebody like Abramovich, though, when he's there that long, it shouldn't have taken something like this for us to say, well, like he's been great for Chelsea. He's done all this. So what? Like, how did he acquire all this money? Why does he never give interviews?
The front of the Irish Times this morning. It didn't affect me in the slightest. Andrews brushes off Keane, and Kenny knows too well not to underestimate Lithuania. That's a piece by James McDermott. Egan taking the bull by the horns as he builds towards career peak. Hopefully John Egan gets back to the Premier League. Qatar will herald a major changing of the guard. This is the quality of footballer that we're watching. We haven't talked about Gareth Bale. Gareth Bale is basically like a part-time footballer, full-time golfer,
yeah,
and still able to affect games and still able to do stuff.
Yeah,
like what? Imagine if he'd been at it the whole time for the last couple of years.
I can see why the Spanish press I know he said it was sickening and so on, but like I can see why they were a bit pissed off by his poor performances. Just the point there about Lithuania, be wary Lithuania. It is true that Ireland have followed up really valiant performances against better opposition. By
bad ones.
And I know it's hard to lift, but I think that's the point of tonight, is that we do have a bit of depth to the squad in the sense of playing Lithuania, where we can freshen it up. And Brown came off the bench, obviously, and played a vital role on Saturday. And you do think freshen it up a bit, and we will have to play more on the front foot, which will be interesting tonight.
A story from Sean Moore in the Irish Times this morning. Leinster semi-finals may be taken out of Croke Park following purge. I'm not sure which purge specifically they're referring to, but they're saying that potentially that strong possibility we won't have Dublin in Croke Park for the Leinster semi-final. We didn't make a decision on it at the time of the draw. It will be better to have 20,000 in Portlaoise or Tullamore or Nolan Park than 30,000 in Croke Park. This is like the penny has dropped, and this would have been exactly what would have happened. We would have had 20,000 at games all around the country under Proposal B. Now, we should never forget that we had the opportunity to have the entire country aflame on weekends, and not just Croke Park being used for big games 3 or 4 times a year. It was like every provincial ground would have been used and full at some stage in a meaningful match.
A lot of these towns as well could do with the tourism boost of people coming in, and whereas Dublin doesn't need anything. The Indo's gone with the same thing about Andrews. Interesting one though as well, Jared. Donegal and our MA players face anxious wait over the Melee. There's a lot of footage there to look into, and also just going into the paper, there's Frank Roke's analysis about, we didn't get into this yet, but if Leinster football was a division, you would call it non-league, and obviously that's in relation to Dublin and Kildare both getting relegated, Offaly getting relegated, Lee struggling as well. I'm not sure what is it what you'd put that down to in Leinster. Maybe it's just years of counties struggling in the shadow of Dublin, or
I think that like it's been.
Kildare don't seem to be in a bad way though overall.
No, and I think they're going to be relatively happy with their league campaign. It's completely off Broadway, and they're going to be fairly cleared through to a final. Johnny Sexton is back for Leinster. Leinster have their full squad of team. There you go, it's the back of the Herald as well. They're playing Munster this weekend. Now's a good time to get back into the club rugby. It's going to be good for the rest of the next few months if you've been only half paying attention.
Into which the provincials?
Yeah. All of the games matter from this point forward, really. Ten Hag warned off Manchester United. Who could possibly turn around to this guy who's on the verge of his dream job and say, no.
Who was this?
Don't do it. Louis van Gaal.
Ooh.
Because he made such a success of the gig, and it was nothing to do.
Might be right though.
No, Louis van Gaal blew that job. Signed crap players, couldn't integrate the good players into the team, and played really bad football. Louis van Gaal was a brilliant manager in the 90s, but he didn't join Manchester United in the 90s because they had an excellent manager themselves in the 90s. And so Van Gaal, speaking at a Holland press conference yesterday, said Ten Hag is a great coach and that is always good for Manchester United, but Manchester United are a commercial club, so it's a difficult choice for a coach. He'd better go to a football club. This will sting, right? This will sting Man United fans because they think it's true, and they know it to be true that money is the thing that matters most to the owners because that's what owners are interested in.
Yeah, but like in fairness to the Glazers, whatever they take their it's not like managers haven't had their chance to bring in players. It does seem like sour grapes, to be fair.
Yeah, he's kind of like Ten Hag should take the gig. The Man United gig comes along once for you.
Absolutely, yeah.
Take the gig. See what if he gets offered it, take it.
As the years go on as well, the expectation of Manchester United does wane a bit. I mean, they haven't been a force in the Premier League in title race for so long now that they're not going to get top 4 this year. So the narrative is changing a bit about them.
Ex-boss makes damning claim. Moneyball. BAWL. That is Tower of the Morning to you. Van Gaal warns Ten Hag United are all about cash, not the game of football.
It's mad how the Roy Keane thing just dominates. Like, he just literally dominates everything. He's still so all-pervasive.
Baralazza on YouTube says, lads, if you ban Roy Keane related topics, you might as well do a 30-minute show.
It's mad, isn't it?
A few minutes behind here, but Roy Keane calls Keith Andrews a bullshitter. Then the three of you describe Roy Keane on screen as an actor, i.e. a bullshitter, says Kenny the Dad.
He's not a bullshitter.
I didn't say he was an actor either.
He puts it on a bit. He plays to the gallery. Because he's now a media pundit as opposed
to... So
I think he's a really compelling guy, very intelligent guy.
I think that I don't think there's been any insincere stuff from him where he's faked it. I don't think there's been any faking going on.
It's a bit exaggerated for effect, though, isn't it?
I think that we've seen that Keane thinks.
Why would you call Keith Andrews a bullshitter? Like, I mean, that's just not based on anything. So that's like exaggerated.
Well, it was bitterness.
Bitterness, yeah, but I mean,
no, that was not. It's not. It wasn't not based. So he was wrong. It was absolutely wrong. But it was bitterness, and it was vengeful. It was the same. Was
that him being Roy Keane being true? That's actually who he is.
Yeah, he is vengeful.
Yeah.
He is bitter about stuff. Like the Matt Doherty stuff. Like, he hammered Matt Doherty because Doherty had a go at them on the way out. The day after Keane and O'Neill went, Doherty went and did an interview on Game On and said something about them that was something to do specifically with the coaching and the more instruction, and like it was kind of but he waited and waited and waited and waited and then was withering of Doherty at Doherty's lowest point at Spurs. And it turns out Doherty is a fairly decent Premier League player.
That's why Roy Keane isn't a football manager, I think.
But he's a brilliant pundit. I don't think any of it's fake. I actually don't think.
I'm not sure he's a brilliant pundit. Like, he's very good to listen to.
Do you turn him off?
He's great. Do I turn him off?
When the stuff is
I don't necessarily turn him on, though.
But
so if Roy Keane is on, like, is he going to give me some insight into why Man United aren't very good?
Most punditry I turn off after matches because I've seen the game. Most of it.
Yeah.
Most of it. But I don't turn him off. I'm like, I'm just going to watch this now for a little while and see. Or if I'm flicking around to see what else is on.
We had David Conley on recently, who I hadn't heard before, and I was like, actually, I listened to you again, and you seem to be on top of your brief, but you're telling me something here I don't know. Roy Keane gives a lot of sound bites, and he's very entertaining, but like, is he educating me? I don't think he is.
Okay, but not everybody always wants to be educated 24 hours a day. There's a little bit of your life that sometimes you just want to lie on the couch, drink wine, eat peanuts, and not be fucking taught something, right?
Bit early for that.
8:42. Apologies for any
morning call.
Good morning.
Yeah.
What an intro.
Yeah.
How's it going, Carl?
Not too bad. How's the coffee?
Yeah, sorry, I shouldn't have walked across the screen, but I have to say, I really would struggle to start a day without it. It gave us a great lift.
Yeah.
Gave us a great lift. What's going on with you?
Not much now, not much. Big game tonight, obviously. Looking forward to it. Might try and head along. Really looking forward to it, actually, because I know the crowd is going to be a little bit smaller. I think they're expecting around 30,000 tonight. But there's generally a real air of optimism, isn't there, around the Irish team now?
Like, these friendlies, in fairness, the Nations League obviously is a great way of avoiding friendlies as much as possible and making games against similar opposition compelling and relevant. But friendlies can still be a hard sell. It just so happens that Ireland is not a hard sell at the moment.
Yeah.
And I don't know what you meant a Saturday, but like, to come back twice and everyone leaving with a smile on their face, you can't take that for granted.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's as I say, a great air of optimism surrounding the team and the whole project now, and obviously the Stephen Kenny situation is sorted now, so there's a sense of security. I know there's going to be probably a couple of changes tonight, but you still get the sense that they A, really want to win the game, and B, want to keep some sense of continuity with the general structure of the team, you would think.
I was thinking this as well, just briefly, like when McGoldrick retired, the stretch of goals, McGoldrick's goal scoring record for Ireland was really, really poor. So we went through a spell of, I don't know, like how many games where our strikers barely scored at all, and we were relying on basically centre backs to get us goals. It's now become normal that like our forward players actually score goals, and like Robinson and Ogbene have been incredibly prolific by Ireland standards.
Yeah.
And we've almost like not noticed that. Actually, our strikers are scoring again.
Yeah.
What's going on? Like Ogbene is trying an overhead kick. Imagine doing that under previous regimes. But like, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they would have tried it. There's a point there. James says, didn't Keane get a good tune out of the Ireland midfield at Euro 2016? I do think there's a lot of revisionism that goes on about O'Neill and Keane. They got a team out of the group at a major tournament. Like, do you know, we haven't done that very often in our entire football
just happened
history.
to play an Italian team who didn't care.
Okay, but they were in the group. They like,
you can't judge anything about that time as being successful.
Sorry.
It was awful. Everything about it was terrible.
We got out of a group at a major tournament.
Yeah, we beat Italy, who were basically not off a yard by racing parlance. And we celebrated beating a second string, not off a yard Italian team as if this was great. That's how low we stooped. And fair enough, we qualified, but like,
we beat Italy in a major tournament.
Yeah, but whatever. Didn't care. Like Italy we lost to North Macedonia when they did care.
We still
celebrate
qualified
that
for in the group. Like, I mean,
and what happened after that? Like.
We went 1-0 up against France
and lost
in France
and lost, and then what happened after that? We completely derailed into a horrible
we did, but like, that's like saying we shouldn't.
And they were on 2.5 million together a year or something like that. Whatever. Like Stephen Kenny's on like what 1/5 of that, and there were these.
Trapattoni was on a bunch of money.
Get these big names in and just qualify at all costs.
Are you saying the midfield didn't play well in 2016 at the Euros? That trio of McCarthy, Hendrick and Robbie Brady didn't play well.
No, in fairness, and they were probably they went downhill after that.
No credit goes to anybody for that.
They weren't, but there was no coaching. Like these players weren't coached.
How did they?
They were decent players. Like they were actually decent players who should have functioned better. What happened to us after that? Why did our midfielders run away from the ball for 4 years or whatever it was?
Well, they weren't running away from the ball in the Euros. 8:46. Give us your views, Carl. What else is going on?
Well, busy afternoon and evening ahead for a number of Republic of Ireland teams. Obviously, the senior team playing against Lithuania tonight. That game kicks off at 7:45 at the Aviva Stadium. The under-21 men's side have an important game as well as they look to reach the European Championships. They take on the Group F leaders Sweden this evening from 5 o'clock. That's an away fixture, and the group's other qualification contenders also meet tonight. Italy take on Bosnia and Herzegovina this evening as well. The under-19s will look to finish elite qualifying for this summer's Euros on a high note. Following defeats to England and Portugal, they face Armenia. That game is at St George's Park from 7:30. And the men's under-17 side also in action as well. They complete their elite qualifying phase against Bulgaria and Portugal from 3. The women's under-17 side play their final qualifying group game against Iceland. That game's in Tala from 12 noon, and a win there coupled with the Slovakia victory over Finland could see Ireland qualify for the finals in Bosnia and Herzegovina, but that group is very, very tight. Elsewhere on the European front this evening and on the international front, 2 more European places at the World Cup finals will be decided after a shocking Italy last Thursday. North Macedonia are in Porto for a meeting with Portugal, and in the evening's other game, Poland take on Sweden for a place in next week's draw. To rugby, Ireland captain Johnny Sexton looks set to return to the Leinster team. That's to face Munster in the United Rugby Championship on Saturday. He trained with the province yesterday. So too did his Ireland teammates Robbie Henshaw, Gary Ringrose, Tadhg Furlong and Jack Conan. Hooker Ronan Kelleher has also stepped up his recovery from injury by returning to the pitch, while Lock James Ryan is going through the return to play protocols. To Gaelic Games 2017, All-Ireland winners Adrian Toohey and Niall Burke have been left out of the Galway hurling panel ahead of the championship. There's also no place in the 34-man squad for Sean Loftus. Lee Chin has emerged as a doubt, meanwhile, for Wexford ahead of their Leinster Championship opener against Galway after reportedly suffering a reoccurrence of a hamstring injury in their loss to Waterford last weekend. Dublin J, meanwhile, say they'll continue to use Croke Park for their home fixtures in the Allianz National Football League next season. There had been speculation that Dessie Farrell's side could switch their home venue to Parnell Park following their relegation to Division 2. And finally, in racing today, 7-race card at Navan. First off there at 2:15.
Johnny, you're celebrating a 2-2 draw against the second-string Belgium team, says Bry. MJ says, yet Johnny is celebrating drawing with the second-string Belgian side in a friendly. What's this vendetta against Roy about? And Mark says, did we not get to the playoff of the 2018 World Cup, beating Wales in Cardiff to get there?
Oh, if anyone wants to celebrate that game, I never want to talk to him or her about football again. Like,
let me just finish this. Yes, the Danes thrashed us, but to say it derailed immediately after the Euros is not correct.
No, it didn't. And again, there's probably revisionism going on here for me. But like, I haven't enjoyed watching Ireland by and large since 2002, that era. And we
played well at the Euros.
In fairness, that wasn't bad. And the French performance was good, and things went against us a bit, and that was the high point of that regime. But it really, really soured, and ultimately the players weren't coached. That's why Doherty and others would have had a pop at them. And now look at Stephen Kenny bringing Hendrick to a similar level, despite the fact they've no relationship, and Hendrick's club form has been patchy, and he's like Robinson playing better than he has for a long time, and just telling these players, yeah, you can actually pass the ball. Like we were horrifically bad to watch. We were horrifically bad to watch by the end of that regime, and ultimately ended up in them getting sacked.
Didn't they get sacked after they didn't get sacked after the
0-0 draw against Denmark.
But not the 5-1.
No, it was the 0-0 draw in the Nations League was the last
after
one.
That, yeah.
Yeah, when actually Obafemi made his debut.
It would have been
that was one of the worst games of football ever, and there were a lot of them.
It would have been fine if they'd left at that point, I think. I think the
5-1?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that would have been a kind of, look, we did everything we could. And Christian Eriksen was unplayable that night. He was absolutely sensational. When we were 1-0 up, weren't we?
Yeah, we went very early. We scored too early.
Yeah, we did.
But to be fair,
could have gone either way, but for that.
To be fair to the managers, I'm not entirely blaming them, because they had to get us qualified for the next tournament. We really need the money. And Martin O'Neill, if Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane decided that the best way of getting Ireland to achieve results was to play like that, they may well have been right. Stephen Kenny has been afforded the time to make these changes along the way and to inculcate a different kind of system that maybe other managers didn't have. And in fairness, he does have that over them, where he's going to get a fairly long reign at this, and he's given a long time. I mean, we're a long time to get our first win, and that was against Andorra. So there is that as well. But I think we're actually becoming watchable now.
Donald says we beat Italy, Germany, Austria, Bosnia and Wales, all in competitive games under Martin O'Neill. It wasn't always great, but let's not revise things completely and say it was terrible always.
The Austria game away, I thought that was actually very good. That was a lovely goal as well. That was we just didn't do enough of that. And it became sour at the end.
All right.
But ultimately, we didn't play football, and hopefully there's a joined up thinking all the way up now.
No, it feels definitely that we're improving slowly. Carl, good stuff. Thanks
lads.
You can read more from Carl across the day on otbsports.com. And a reminder, OTBAM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Now, to the Women's Champions League, and I'm delighted to say Emma Byrne is with us live from Barcelona this morning. Emma, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning. How are you? All good.
We're watching agog at how the Camp Nou is sold out for the second leg of the Clásico in the Champions League, and kind of really beginning to understand that the movement in Ireland to get behind the women's team and for the growth of the women's football in particular has actually been a global movement. That's the whole point here, is that we're plugged into something that everybody can see is happening worldwide. But I think probably in Ireland, not many people are fully aware of the fact that the Camp Nou is sold out tonight.
Yeah, it is, and you're right. Women's football is a very global sport, and it is improving all around the world. But I have to say that here in Spain, well, in Barcelona in particular, not the whole of Spain, that it's just become huge. It's a massive thing, and I think the sellout is a good example of that. It just proves, how much they're behind the women's team here at Barca, and how much the club do for the women's team.
Why do you think so obviously tonight is the culmination in decisions that were made a while back, but can you talk to us a bit about that? Why did that happen? What's kind of been behind the surge in support for the team, and also just the quality of football that they're playing? How did that happen?
Well, it started a long time ago. They have a ethos in the club that is, it goes from the men's team all the way down to the 5-6-year-olds, and the women's team have been included in that. And all of the way they train, the way they work, the way they live, eat, sleep, it's the same kind of method, the same regime as the men's team. And watching them train on the pitch, it's very, very technical specific, and it's all about training with the ball. It's all about being comfortable on the ball, and it's the same with the men's, the passing, the short passing, the tiki-taka, the counter pressing. It's very important that for them that they win the ball back very quickly, and they've been working on that a lot. And I played against Barca in the Champions League a very long time ago, and we absolutely hammered them. And it's just because they weren't able to compete physically. But you could see they were very good players. But when it came to Champions League football, you have to be very, very strong and very good defensively. And I know they've worked on that a lot throughout the years, and they've become very, very good at it. And for them, it's just about winning the ball back higher up the pitch, which they're very, very good at. And basically punishing teams when they can, because like the men, sometimes they play too much, but now they're very, very direct and really good to watch.
And with that, the fans have showed up in big numbers.
Absolutely. I mean, Barca has a massive fan base anyway, and the men's club have integrated the women's into the club with their social media. They've done everything very professional in regards to advertising the women's game. They're in the museum. Wherever you can see men's football at Barca, you can see women's. And it's the same with every sport across Barca, by the way. It's not just women's football, it's handball, it's basketball. But you can see it's more notable in the women's football because of the fan base and because of the hordes of people that want to go and watch.
That's kind of a big thing for the game as well, isn't it, Emma? You see League of Ireland Twitter accounts as well, where there's no differentiation anymore, and now Bo's team plays on Saturday. A lot of people go along to the game. You see a lot of the same people that go to Dalymount on Friday night. Sligo Rovers, their team now starting off in the League of Ireland. Twitter account just treats everything as the same thing, and it's becoming like almost a big family from which like both the men and the women can benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. And that comes from within the clubs and their drive and how they publicise their teams. And a lot of teams are now having the same Twitter account and things like that. For me, I think it's still better, the separate Twitter accounts, and you can bring them together some stages. But Barca have done that really, really well. And they also have the Barca TV, which is, an in-house production company, which is a massive thing. And they also promote the team very, very well. Yeah.
You're commentating for the game's tomorrow night. I should specify in case anybody's going looking for their TV listings tonight to try and see it. You're working with Barca TV, so they obviously have an English language version, or else you're doing it in Spanish, and that's even more impressive.
No, unfortunately, I'm not there.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet with my Spanish or my Catalan, by the way. They speak Catalan here more than Spanish. No, I am doing the English version, thankfully, because that would just be too stressful for me otherwise. It's really nice. It's really nice to work with the club in general, because they do treat everybody extremely well, and you do get the sense of a family kind of community once you're part of the club, you're part of the big picture, so to speak. It's been great.
They're totally set up for a period of success then. It sounds like the academy system is funneling world-class players through to the senior team, and there seems to be a gap at the moment for a preeminent team in women's European football. After, for a long time, it would have been Lyon. Everybody would have said, oh, well, they're going to win the Champions League for forever. But actually, sport is cyclical, and it seems like it's Barca's turn.
Yeah, it really does. It really feels like that. And, watching the other games in the Champions League, I do believe that Barca are the best team in it. And, they don't stop improving, which I think is very important, because they won the Champions League, which was fantastic. A lot of teams stayed together after that, and the bulk of them did. But the players that they've added after winning the Champions League has been massive as well, and they're just getting stronger and stronger. And they look unbeatable. I mean, Real Madrid did very, very well against them, but you're talking about playing against Barca when maybe they're at their worst day, and hopefully you're at your best and you're just basically defending. So they're very, very hard to beat. I do think Real Madrid did very, very well, but I don't think they're going to have a chance tomorrow.
The other games that are still on, so Juve are ahead of Lyon 2-1 on aggregate after the first leg. Arsenal and Wolfsburg play their second leg, I think, on Thursday as well. What's the story with Arsenal at the moment? Are they realistic contenders to win this thing, or would it take a bit of a miracle for them to, if they get through this, to beat a team as good as Barcelona at the moment?
I don't think it would be like a miracle. I think that they'd have to be playing very, very well, and I think they'd have to have a lot of things to go right for them. But I have seen a massive change with Arsenal as well. They're a very, very good team. They seem to be knitting together much more. They've added Blackstenius, who's a fantastic signing for them, what I believe was something that they were lacking, that out-and-out number 9. And watching them play recently, I think they definitely can do it. But I do think it's going to be a very big ask of them to beat Barca at this stage. And, Barca, they seem to have played their poorer performances of recent, and that's when they're most dangerous. And you really don't want to be going into that game when they're fired up and needing to prove something. So if Arsenal do manage to beat Wolfsburg, which I think they will, I think it's going to be a fantastic game in the semi-finals. They'll be playing Barca for sure. Barca will win tomorrow night, and I think they can do it. But there's going to be a lot of factors going into that game for them to do it.
It will be really interesting to see exactly what would happen with Arsenal. So for people who might not have been following the WSL week on week, they're just a point behind Chelsea at the top of the table. There's an incredible title race unfolding there, and in the midst of that there'll be hopefully 2 legs against Barcelona as well. So no better time for everybody to be focused when the football is getting incredibly good and incredibly tense.
Yeah, it is the best time of the season, and especially now because it's a great title run in the UK. Barca have run away with the league here. They won the league a couple of weeks ago. I mean, it's crazy. They had something like 11 games left and they'd won the league. But for Arsenal, that could be another factor for them. The fact is they have to fight for the league in England. And that's a massive task for them as well, and for them to have to try to utilise players and to try and keep players fit for the semi-finals. Hopefully they'll get there. Will be something that they'll have to manage, and that'll be difficult because they do have a massive battle in England at the moment.
What do you think is going to happen?
What do I think is going to happen? I think Arsenal can win the league. I do. I think they can win it. I do think Chelsea are liable to drop some points. So they have to, Arsenal have to fight right till the end. I do think Arsenal will get to the semi-finals. I'm hoping they do. And I think it's going to be an extremely difficult game, but I do think Barca will beat them, unfortunately, for Arsenal.
Well, it'll be 2 good legs to watch and a good opportunity for us all to kind of test and see exactly where Arsenal are and where the WSL is versus this great Barca team. I did want to talk to you a little bit about the Ireland team at the moment. This Sweden game it's been looming large for months and months and months and months, and now we're 2 weeks away from it. And I think there's a bit of trepidation, obviously, because of the result the first time that they played, but the importance of us seeing progress and the team not taking a step back. Like, it doesn't feel like they're going to take a step back, and it feels like the progress has been there, and it feels like so many of them are actually, of the team themselves, are playing good football on teams that are either coming out the right side of difficulties or are just coming into a sweet spot in their career. That's kind of from the outside. You're obviously much more connected to it. What's your feeling about how the team as individuals are progressing at the moment, and what's your expectation for how well we're going to go against Sweden?
I mean, it's definitely it's looking good I'm optimistic about the Irish team. You can see an improvement. There was definitely a transitional stage, and it's difficult for a manager to come in and to put her stamp on the team. And she said it, Vera said it herself. She doesn't have a great amount of time with the team. It's not like club football that you get to work with them every day. So that's been difficult, but you can definitely see a change in it. I think they are playing more attacking football. I think it's a really good moment for certain players like Katie McCabe, like Denise O'Sullivan. I think it's really nice to see a lot of them playing in the Women's Super League in England. And I do think it's a really good time. I think Sweden are an exceptional team, and they're very much in form, and they've players that are really, hitting the high levels at the moment. So I think it's going to be an extremely difficult game. But in general, as far as qualification goes, I do think we can do it. With a couple of slip-ups there last year, but there's no reason why they can't get a result in Sweden. I think they're good enough to get a point at least, and then it's about the rest of the games in the campaign and keeping everybody fit and just pushing forward and getting 3 points in every game after this one.
We haven't quite bottomed out about who is going to be our number one goalkeeper into the future. There's a bit of competition there, so it's Maloney, Walsh and Brosnan in the race at the moment for the number 1 jersey.
It's really difficult. I mean, for me, it's very important to have a goalkeeper for the national team who's playing regularly for their club. And it doesn't really matter what level that's at. As long as they're playing, they're getting lots of minutes, and it's a struggle for the goalkeepers at the moment. Grace Maloney's been playing very, very well, and she's, you know, Reading's number one, and she's very consistent. However, I was very excited to see that Walsh had come over from the dark side. She's a fantastic goalkeeper, and I think she's done really, really well when she's come in. So Vera Pauw does have some decisions to make, but it's just to reiterate, they have to be playing football, they have to be getting regular games, and that's very, very important.
It's interesting you say that it doesn't really matter what level they're at. So you think Bazunu over Kelleher in terms of the paths that they're going on?
Yeah, I mean, well, no, I do like both of them, and Kelleher's been playing really, really well. But for me, goalkeeping is about you as an individual, and not so much about the opposition or the level that you're playing at. As long as you're training well, and the minutes that you're getting. I mean, not like when I was playing at Arsenal, I had nothing to do. But you're busy and active, and you're putting all the training into the games, and you know, making the right decisions, because that's very important. If you're not playing, you don't get a chance to put that to the test. You don't make the right decisions, You don't have that reaction time. And it doesn't matter how much you train, because it's very, very important to be able to go and make those decisions on the pitch. And the only way to do that is through playing time.
What about the respective quality of your coaching though then?
Well, that's very important. That's without talking about playing or anything like that. Your goalkeeping coach is your God, and you know, it's really important, and I can definitely speak to that, because I've had goalkeeping coaches who weren't good enough and lots of problems with, and it was one of the reasons why I stayed at Arsenal for so long, is because I had an excellent goalkeeping coach that became everything to me, and I depended on him a lot. So yeah, for me, it's the most important thing.
That's interesting, because like Caoimhín Kelleher is obviously getting incredible levels of coaching, and you know, he's seeing firsthand what the second or third best goalkeeper in the world is like. Bazunu had that and is now away from that, but is playing week in, week out, and I guess can tap back into it. Like if he felt he wasn't getting everything he needs on a day-to-day basis at Portsmouth, he could just rock up to Man City and say, I have this thing I need to work on, and maybe has a bit of the best of both worlds.
Yeah, absolutely. And if he doesn't feel like he's getting what he wants at Portsmouth, he will change that. You know, it's so important to have that. And it's very important to also know what kind of club you're going into, and know the goalkeeping coaches that you're going to be working with. It's a massive decision, and it definitely would have been a part of his decision in when he was going there. But yeah, like Man City are very open to that as well. They have the facilities, they have the coaches, and he could definitely go back there if he wanted. But I wouldn't say he would. I'd say he's happy enough. Otherwise, he'd have to change that fairly quickly.
Just on that as well, I remember speaking to a goalkeeper in the League of Ireland who he wasn't particularly enamoured with his goalkeeping coach. And I guess, what's that like, Emma? So you've 2 or 3 goalkeepers, you've one goalkeeping coach, and fair enough, if you're an outfield player and you don't get on with the manager, you can kind of hide and, you know, get on with it, whatever. But like, if there are only 2 or 3 goalkeepers and you don't get on with the goalkeeping coach, where do I go from here?
Yeah, it's difficult if you're not the first choice, because then you can't really rock up to the manager and tell him that you're not happy with the coach, because you're not really the priority, unfortunately. But if you are second or third choice, then it's just about, you know, getting through the sessions and getting as much as you can from it. It's really difficult mentally to do that. But if it were me and I wasn't happy with my goalkeeping coach and I knew nothing was going to change, I'd be looking to leave for sure. Or I'd definitely be getting my coaching elsewhere, which is what I did at Arsenal. I had to go to Hale End, which is where the boys train. So I was actually going outside of my training to get goalkeeping coaching. Wow. Yeah.
Apart from your burgeoning media career, are you involved in football on a day-to-day basis as a coach or at that level?
Not at the moment because I'm teaching as well, so I literally don't have any time. But I am planning on doing my I did start my A license, but I'm planning on going back to it. And I coach for not Barca directly, but sometimes teams come in and they want coaching sessions, and I'd coach for some of the players, some of their camps and things like that. We're also thinking about starting an academy here in Barcelona. So I think in respect to my time in coaching, I think there's going to be a lot more of that in the future.
So do you aspire to be a goalkeeping coach at like women's level, or do you aspire to be a goalkeeping coach at any level, or do you aspire to be just a coach?
Well, coach first. You have to do all your badges, and I enjoy coaching outfield players. And then goalkeeping would be my expertise. And I really wouldn't. I'd actually love to go into coaching boys and men's teams, but also women's as well. It really wouldn't bother me. It doesn't bother me who I coach. But in general, at the beginning, it will be to try to improve the level of goalkeeping coaching here in Spain first of all, and then see what happens.
Yeah. It's such a terrible part of the world to live in as well, what with all the amazing food, architecture, weather.
Does Spain have amazing food?
Oh, Barcelona has some of the best food in the world.
Does it?
Yeah.
Barcelona's not really
Spain
Spain.
Yeah, that's
Barcelona's
not
really
a
Spain,
good
though.
thing. It's not always a good thing. By the way. You talk about the weather. It's been hotter in Ireland than here, and I'm getting annoyed with everyone texting me and slagging me off.
I'm going to the south of France on Thursday, Emma, and I looked up the temperatures on Sunday, and it just like everything went grey for the south of France for the 4 days I'm there, and it was much colder than it was in Ireland. As I was looking on my phone, I was like, what?
I know. I split my time between Manchester and Barcelona, and usually I'm in all my glory texting about, lovely weather and all. I've been here for 3 weeks now, and it's rained every single day, every day. And
but that's it for the year, though. That's it. That's it.
Well, yeah, it's starting to get a bit nice now, and I'm leaving tomorrow, Thursday. So yeah.
Beautiful.
Great to have you with us again, Emma. Thanks a million. Cheers.
Thanks a lot. Cheers. Take care.
That's Emma Byrne there, Republic of Ireland goalkeeping legend.
So goalkeepers, in terms of goalkeepers, they kind of see everything. So I wonder, does that make them like a better coach, or do outfield players who are coached by somebody who's been a goalkeeper think, well, you didn't play outfield. I mean, can you be really telling me how to do an interchange in midfield? So it's interesting that she's like, I guess she does want to eventually become a goalkeeping coach, but first of all, she has to start with the general.
Yeah, Nuno is the most recent goalkeeper who has made it to elite level, right? I mean, Dino Zoff
is probably the iconic one. It's not that many when you think about it.
No.
When
was Zoff the coach in?
He was coach subsequently anyway, but years would we had Dean Kiley on OTBAM last year. I thought it was really interesting.
He's a clever guy.
Yeah, and but do you know what struck me about him as well? He's just a good bloke, and I think the thing with Kenny is that
he likes to have good people around.
Yeah, and obviously that's a cliche now, but it's really, really important. And I don't know, the goalkeeping coach interests me because like how much can you tell someone every day in training about being a goalkeeper? As much as, okay, we're playing team A at the weekend, we have to pass the ball out less from the back or whatever, but how can you keep it fresh? And also, like, as a goalkeeping coach, when you were a goalkeeper, you didn't pass the ball out from the back. You have to tell Caoimhín Keller how to do little 1-2s or make shape to get the ball, and you have to learn and evolve yourself. So it is interesting.
Well, they've got Taffarel in as their coach at Liverpool. Spain and food. What? Are you joking me? Like
Spanish cuisine,
amazing.
Such as,
well, their meats, their cheeses, their stews. Like, have you ever been to San Sebastian or the Basque?
I mean, I'd love to go to the Basque.
Okay, well,
it's not really Spain though.
More Michelin star. Geographically,
they would see themselves as Basques though.
Okay, grand.
As with the Catalans.
But when I talk about Spanish cuisine, I talk about you get on a plane and it's the Spanish passport people who are waving you through because you're from the EU. Those people, any of those airports.
So you put Spanish cuisine ahead of like French and Italian?
Miles and well, so Italy first. Italy first. Spain second. And then after that, have whatever.
French behind.
Yeah, well behind.
That's a Well, that's a terrible call.
OTBAM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. MOC says Louis van Gaal couldn't even get Holland to a World Cup in 2002 with all those superstars. That's because he came up against Roy Keane. This whole conversation has gone full circle and we're finished it now.
Remember his tackle on Overmars, which was basically a red card. It was about 40 seconds.
It wasn't a red card.
It was.
He won the ball.
He certainly did not.
He did.
Talk about the proverbial setting the tone. Oh my God. Has Lansdowne Road ever been as noisy for a football game since?
No, that was
Probably not.
That was the best Lansdowne Road experience.
Yeah, it was all
I've
going to
ever
fall
had.
apart as the handshake with Mick and Roy. I thought Mick was great on
It's about time for us to bring around the 20th anniversary of Saipan.
It is. People have been on to me about I want to do a piece in this. Will he talk? It's still. I mean, Miguel Delaney's thing last week about Keane wanted to bring, was it this coach / motivational guy or fitness guru or whatever, and Mick apparently turned it down. Even 20 years later, we're finding out new things, and I thought it was compelling.
So you will read the 20th anniversary pieces?
Oh yeah.
Oh, will you?
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure. If,
are you just tired of it?
Well, I think lockdown we did a lot of kind of and so therefore that didn't pique the interest as much as I thought it would. I was like, actually, I've literally been talking about this for 20 years.
Yeah.
I've had enough.
God, it was. They were crazy times. I'm kind of coming more around to Roy Keane's way of looking at it. The more I was sort of 50-50 on it for years. Do you know what I mean? Like,
no, I don't know what you mean.
I still think don't walk out in the team. Do you know
Well, he
what I
got
mean?
sent home, so
he did.
He had no choice.
Well, no, he kind of.
I mean, he could have played.
He made his grave there. To be fair.
Okay, 15 minutes past 9. Relitigating.
we're going to solve it this morning.
Relitigating Saipan. We're going to take a quick break. We're back after these with Will O'Callaghan.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Just to have the level of passion around again. People love the idea of coming and supporting Ireland. We're all really proud to represent Ireland.
He wants us to play attractive football, wants us to get the crowd on their feet, wants us to be attacking.
In swinger. Oh, and the goal! The Republic of Ireland have scored! John Egan with his first ever international goal. What a moment for Stephen Kenny. The biggest moment of Kenny's reign so far.
Support's been magnificent and singing my name, but I'm happier just thinking about the players because the players really deserve credit.
Full live commentary of the Republic of Ireland against Lithuania this Tuesday on OTB Sports Radio.
FBD Insurance knows this sound spells trouble for van drivers. But if you're an existing FBD customer, you'll get 15% off a new van insurance policy. It's how we're keeping you and your van on the road. Visit fbd.ie or contact your local branch. FBD Insurance. Support. It's what we do. Terms and conditions apply. 15% discount available on new commercial motor policies only when an existing FBD farm, business, car or home policy is in place. FBD Insurance Group Limited, trading as FBD Insurance, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Commercial motor insurance is underwritten by FBD Insurance PLC.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Oh, you got a trophy on Strava, did you? Oh, okay, all right. Will O'Callaghan, good morning to you. How
I
are
said
you?
that's not fair.
Will, what's
that's
going
not
on?
Fair. I was also putting it down.
Morning,
to the
Johnny.
mic.
How are
Morning,
you?
Will.
Morning,
Like
Ger.
that's you
Oh,
can't.
we're moving
Will,
on.
that's
No,
sorry.
we're
We had a
moving on.
conversation off
No,
air, which
no.
he then. How are you, Will?
Yeah, you can follow
I'm
Johnny
good.
on Strava if you want.
I have to say, I was-
Come on, Johnny. What's the achievement? You just got?
There's no achievement, and I'm not talking to Jerry anymore about bike-related issues. By the way, global warming and all that, but cycling in that weather yesterday, 15 degrees in March. Will, I was taken by your tweet at the weekend about a kind of an online GA type service. Got a lot of likes. LOI TV has obviously been extremely successful. You seem to get a lot of, yes, this should happen. TV isn't good enough.
Yeah, look, you get a few people who are going to say financially this could be difficult to implement, but I think it will be that tricky to do, really. I'm surprised the GA haven't done so already. Like, the very basic model you're looking for here is the opportunity to be able to watch games on demand after they've already taken place. For an expansion of streaming for fixtures that aren't going to be shown on free to air, like, not for a moment would I suggest that TG Car or RTE shouldn't be showing games free to air. I think that's crucial for the GA to actually get their message out there. But at the same time, there's plenty more action that's taken place. It doesn't exactly get the spotlight on it, which potentially, if we were to take the model that was already used, as you mentioned, by League of Ireland TV, which is fantastic when you could buy the season pass, I still bemoan the fact that the season pass is now gone. I understand the clubs had concerns, and similarly in the GA, about getting people through the turnstiles, which meant that streaming was kind of left at the end of the pandemic a little bit. But I think for people who just have a more general interest in catching games, catching stories, being able to casually watch matches and maybe look back at them, a lot has been lost by the streaming services not being available right now. And I think with the GA, they've got like an incredible potential archive there if they were to curate it properly. You could go back and watch classic matches. You could have a midweek magazine show. This is something that should be driven by the GA themselves through YouTube and their website. And I genuinely believe that there would be a subscription base that would come in to offset the costs on it as well.
I'm fairly sure they're looking into all that stuff, to be honest, and it's like one of those things that will be a byproduct. It's imminent. There's small difficulties, I think, they have to work out with the individual county boards, because the county boards had been generating income from streaming, and there was a bit of pushback about those games not being on TV. When they had the opportunity to put them on TV, they would put them behind a paywall because it was going to generate more money from them. So once all that is worked out, you will start seeing, I suspect, a proper online service housed in Croke Park and run by the GA. I'm fairly sure that's coming. Let's get on to events on the pitch, because the hurling pod is back this week. I just want to, this bit in particular, Davy Fitz in the paper today saying Austin Gleeson needs to wise up a little bit. The 2016 hurler of the year, he's going to miss, as it stands, Saturday's National League final against Cork. Obviously they're going to appeal, but James Skehill and Paul Murphy have little sympathy for him.
It's not going to change Liam Cahill from picking Austin Gleeson, of course not, but like for Liam Cahill there now, he's kind of looking going, is this fella capable of doing it now in All-Ireland semi-final? And it's definitely something you could see. The cameras cut to Cahill on the sideline. You could see he was there going, he was just so annoyed with it. And they were hammering Wexford at this stage, but you could just see the reaction of him going, what was that for? No more than the rest of us. Everybody else was thinking the same thing. Like you said, completely needless in the situation. He could have said something to him. He could have told Simon Donoghue, look at the scoreboard. He could have told anything. The fact he bought it is just, I think it's just disappointing from a Waterford point of view that, there was nothing else on the line here now, and now he's not in the league final. It's a very disappointing from Waterford angle.
Is there any issue, lads, with the way that Donoghue went down? I mean, like the amount of force, for anyone who's got a flick in that kind of region before, sometimes the flick is worse than a full-on hit anyway. He hits the ground, but it seemed, to give him some credit, he tried his best to not get Ozzie Gleeson sent off when the referee John Keenan came over to produce the red card after speaking to the umpire. Some people have accused him of taking a dive or going down softly to get him sent off. I'll give it to you first, James. What did you make of the incident?
Well, I'm just assessing the context. So the context is that Simon Donoghue is getting bet a large amount of points at the moment and saying Ozzie Gleeson's up. Ozzie Gleeson does the action, does the intent, and Simon Donoghue goes down. Fair enough, you can say he went down softly, but if you're a person and you're looking to blame Simon Donoghue first as opposed to blame Ozzie Gleeson, I have an issue with that. That's not, granted, yeah, you can say it's a bit soft and he should have stood up and he probably didn't connect, perfectly and probably grazed off his thigh. So be it. Fair enough. Can we say Simon Donoghue should have stood up? Probably should have, yeah. But then I would take more focus and put it on Ozzie and say the action by Ozzie was worse than the action by Simon Donoghue. And again, as I repeat, if you're looking at Simon Donoghue and trying to attribute blame to him, you need to look at yourself then after that, because the damage that Ozzie does to his team, is far greater than what Simon does to his team. Do you know what I mean? So it just shouldn't have happened, and especially in that position. And Paul is 100% right. If you're 19 points out, turn around, laugh at him and point to the scoreboard and jog on. Get out there. Move on then for 7 days' time. Don't be getting involved in these needless antics especially when there's so many cameras and eyes and everything on you. You don't get away with it. If you want to hit him a good jostle, fair enough. You probably won't get a red card for that. But Jesus, get your ass out of town and get ready for the next ball. Simple as that.
That kind of region was the terminology that I took from that piece, which I thought was quite nicely put, Will.
Yeah, just such a moment of madness though as well, Johnny, when you think about it. And it would raise questions about Austin Gleeson's mentality when it comes to big moments like that, because Simon Donoghue pushes him into the hoardings at Nolan Park, and that's the genesis of the incident that takes place. But still, you look up at the scoreboard, you're 5 goals ahead, a few minutes left in the game, should be getting ready for a league final at Thurles this weekend, and Ozzie Gleeson decides to have a flick back. I think it's very unlikely, if Waterford do decide to pursue an appeal, that they would win it, which means they're going to be without some crucial players for that league final this weekend, because Stephen Bennett is still injured, and Jamie Barnes not going to be back in time, Conor Prunty is still out. But Liam Cahill has developed this panel where guys have been able to just plug in and play and fit into the system. And they have shown so far that they probably have the deepest panel in the country. I just wonder if it might come back to haunt them slightly when it comes to the Tipperary game in a few weeks' time in the Championship.
Why do you think it's going to have an impact on the Tip game?
I think because... Two elements. I think there's going to be a kickback in Tipperary after their defeat against Waterford at Walsh Park. I think Tipperary will not be as open as some of the teams that Waterford have played in recent weeks. It's remarkable that they scored 18 goals in 6 games in the National Hurling League this year. They were helped a lot by the way Wexford left open spaces in their defence last weekend at Nolan Park. But I think you need those key players to come back in if you're Waterford for the Tipperary game, because it's going to be a step up in intensity when it comes around to that fixture on the 16th of April. And it's difficult for any team to be without 3 or 4 kind of nailed on starters. I think maybe, again, Pádraig Mandy, who's coming back in, is maybe going to have a role from the bench this year, but definitely they would want to have Prunty, Calum Lyons back into the team. I think that you definitely want to have Stephen Bennett starting as your free taker and key scorer. And then we'll see what happens about Austin Gleeson. He'll probably come straight back into the team for the Tipperary game, but he's going to be watching from the stands at Semple Stadium this weekend, I think, when they go up against a very good Cork team.
Yeah, Cork are pretty good. Austin Gleeson has a little bit of that in his game, right? And if you remember, Wayne Rooney would have had something similar where occasionally he would get sent off, and now it turned out Wayne Rooney had anger issues that he has now spoken about that were connected to all sorts of different things in his life. But if Gleeson, the notion that Gleeson needs to play on that edge to still be hurler of the year candidate, I don't really buy that. I think that they need to get their hands around it and take it from there,
Look, Jared, at this stage, he's got 6-7 championship years behind him since his breakthrough year in 2016.
Can you change that?
Yeah, you can.
I think maturity
can change.
But at the same time, if he does something like that,
he's 26.
It makes no sense. It seems like there was a red mist reaction that you can't change. I don't know, Will.
I think you have to show maturity. Like, if you're going to help your team out, as Paul said in the clip that we just played, the risk isn't when Ozzie Gleeson gets sent off in a situation like the weekend. It's if they have to play against a Kilkenny or a Galway in an All-Ireland semi-final, and next thing players get the feeling that you can get in his head. You can maybe talk to him, maybe give him a dirty stroke off the ball and see if you can get him a red card. We saw that happen with a few Limerick players earlier on in the league as well. I have no doubt the players are going to be on high alert in the opposition. I don't condone any of that type of behaviour. But if you're going to try and use a bit of gamesmanship, you will know that you can possibly get into Austin Gleeson's head. And it's now up to Ozzie Gleeson to hurl the way he did in the first half against Wexford when he banged in 2 goals and was a creator for another goal as well.
Yeah.
That's the player he needs to be, not the guy who has to sit in the stands.
There's every chance that he will sit there this week and be disgusted with himself and use that as motivation to become the hurler of the year again this year, because it's right there for him. The quality of the team that is around him. Davey in the papers today saying that he thinks they're the ones who are going to put it up to Limerick the most, that they have a discernible pattern of play. They have a manager who firmly believes in that group of players, who is wedded to them, and who I suspect they are equally wedded to him after he turned down Tip in the off season. It's a remarkable story, and it feels like we're primed for an incredible championship. How have your power rankings held up, Will?
Yeah, look, I think there was some scoring early on when I had Waterford and Cork in, I think, 2nd and 3rd position early on in the power rankings. Not just on the show itself. People were saying to me, how can you rank them that highly? And look, Waterford were still easily beaten by Limerick in the semi-final last year. And look how easily Limerick beat them in the final the year before. Waterford aren't quite there. But the evidence that we've had in the 6 league games so far are that exactly what Davy Fitz said. They're hurling to a system which has evolved over the last 3 years. They've been able to move players around. I don't think anyone would have expected start this year that Jack Fagan would be playing at wing back and playing very well at wing back for Waterford. He seemed like he was going to be the ball winner within the half forward line. And just in the last few weeks, even just being able to add in Desi Hutchinson's pace, I couldn't believe that Wexford were as accommodating as they were with the way that they marked at the weekend to leave space in behind for him. We saw Shane Bennett come on and have a bit of an impact at the weekend too. They've got a real depth about their panel. Now, again, it's probably a case of finding the best 15 and getting some of those injured players back in, because this Munster Championship is going to be so difficult to qualify from. But from everything we've seen, Waterford look like the team who are probably best set up to try and catch Limerick. Albeit, Limerick will go to Portugal this week. They won't be one bit concerned about what happens in the league final. It's just about them trying to get back to the level that they've been at for the last 3-4 seasons when they come back for the start of Championship. Because they're going to need to be good when they take on Cork in that first game.
A week in Portugal sitting on the beach.
It'll be raining though. Judging by my how hard is it for Limerick, Will? I think they're still odds on, I think, to win the hurling. If I'm wrong, fair enough. We've seen with Dublin, the sort of collapse with them through the league. The thing with it, I guess the thing the likes of Limerick is with their physicality and with the levels that they've kind of reached, everyone else is striving to get right up there with them, and they have to almost keep improving themselves.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I've always said I think they need a really good dance partner to keep Limerick motivated. And maybe Waterford are going to be that dance partner for them. And look, they blew Waterford away in an All-Ireland final 2 years ago. The semi-final last year, that was the day with the hay where everything got delayed. And yet Limerick came out the starting blocks with no real problems and won that game pretty comfortably. It's going to be a case of whether Waterford can get up to that level, because I still think that Limerick are going to be the best team when it comes around to this summer. They addressed some of the issues that they had early in the league. They were trying some players out. And maybe John Kiley learned that some of those backup players aren't going to be good enough to start, with the exception of O'Neill, when the championship comes around. And once they get Cian Lynch back in, they're going to have to stop the red cards like they got for Galan and Hegarty, because as good as this Limerick team is, they can't be teams of 14 men. But if they can address those issues and get back to the kind of hunger that they've had over the last 2 or 3 years, Limerick are still the most talented starting 15 that's available in the country. I have them at the moment in 4th place in my power rankings. We're going to do a massive update next week after the league finals, but I think it'll be no great surprise if they're still top of the tree when the summer finishes off.
Here's one for you very briefly. Which All-Ireland championship is more open?
Football at the moment, I think. Realistically, for the hurling, I think you're looking at Limerick, who are still considerable favourites. Cork, who still have plenty of question marks about them even after the game against Kilkenny at the weekend. It's a weird one, Johnny, where Kilkenny probably didn't lose a whole lot in defeat because they hurled remarkably well for 52 minutes and actually bossed quite a bit in the first half, and then Cork put the squeeze on their puck out and got over the line at the end of the game. But are Kilkenny quite at Limerick's level yet? I mean, Tipperary haven't shown. Maybe they will in a few weeks' time when they play Waterford in the championship, but they look a bit behind. I think the contenders are a little bit further behind in the hurling than it is in football. Good luck trying to call a football winner right now, where Kerry and Mayo look like they're the two best teams in the country right now. Can Dublin improve on where they were in the league?
And Tyrone.
And then there's a group of teams.
No
like
mention
Tyrone,
of Galway in the hurling.
They're third favourites in the bookmakers, fourth favourites in the bookmakers, which kind of surprised me. And maybe some of that, Johnny, you know more about punting than I do.
Leinster, though. It's
they're
Leinster,
third. They're third this morning as it stands. They're actually shorter.
It's getting
price
out of
than
Leinster as well. Is obviously Leinster is in theory should be a good bit easier than Munster.
I think that's exactly the thinking. But would you really put Galway ahead of Kilkenny currently, or substantially ahead of Kilkenny or Wexford, based on what we've seen in the leagues so far? I think there's a certain amount of blind hope with Galway.
I wouldn't at the moment. I think that it's early in the Shefflin era, and I suspect that it's going to take him a year or two to actually find out what that style is and what that pattern of play that he's trying to get the team into. You couldn't say you've seen a discernible Shefflin imprint just yet on the team that is this is exactly how they're going to play in the final 15 minutes of a game. We know exactly what they're going to do, whereas we do know exactly what Waterford are going to try and do. We know what Limerick will do because we've seen it from them, and we know what Cork are trying to do now as well. It feels like this is the two eras that we've seen from Kingston. This is the best that the team have been, and the fact that they've taken the league seriously this year, I think, is actually a good thing for them, because it meant that there was pressure on them early, and that pressure, I think, they've responded to it and they've grown through it, and that's why I'd be pretty happy if I was a Cork hurling fan at the moment about how things are going. Just a quick word about the general state of Leinster football. There's been big investments in the East Leinster project in various underage initiatives. It hasn't quite just borne fruit at the moment.
Oh, look, I mean, to put this simply, it's the first time ever in the history of the National Football League that there won't be a Leinster team in Division 1 of the league, which tells its own story, really. At the moment, for the Tailteann Cup as things stand, you're looking at Louth, Meath, Dublin and Kildare are the only teams in the province who aren't in the Tailteann Cup. The Tailteann Cup is going to be dominated by teams from Leinster unless one of them gets to the Leinster final. So
they'll all get knocked out early, though, right? When you say dominated,
probably
the sheer number of teams will be high, but whether or not they're playing in the final, we'll wait and see.
We'll wait and see particularly wait and see where Down are at, given that Down had a miserable league campaign, and whether they can turn it around. Given that they were the team relegated alongside Offaly out of Division 2, in theory they should be one of the top seeds when it comes around to the Tailteann Cup. But maybe Cavan and Tipperary be licking their lips, lads, after going up. And you saw Wicklow and Laois go from the third flight down to the fourth, and particularly for Laois, that's very disappointing when they contested the Leinster final not all that long ago, and then they've gone successive demotions from Division 2 down to Division 4. So Louth have gone in the opposite direction. Louth are the outlier when it comes to Leinster, and all credit has to be given, I think, to Mickey Hart. He's got Sam Mulroy, who's one of the best players in the country, who's been there kicking the scores for them.
Would you say one of the best players in the country, yeah?
I think so. I think he has to be right up there, Johnny. Just the scoring that he's doing at the moment, the fact that he's done it now at Division 3. It was one thing at Division 4 when he was knocking over scores for fun last year, but he's followed that up and shown it at a higher level. And I have to give credit to Hart. That was not a fashionable job to go
Totally. Just briefly though, like Leinster's in a great place in another way, where there's probably far more interest in the Leinster Championship this year and Leinster football in general. I know Kildare got relegated. Dublin, forget about Dublin getting relegated, because that's just kind of it's a ruse. And then you actually have a reasonably compelling Leinster Championship for the first time in a long time.
It would be an almighty championship if Dublin weren't in it, and I've felt that for the last few years. It's not that the quality of football will be incredibly amazing, because these teams are not playing at the very top of the tree, but it's very competitive, and the local rivalries are still there. And look, because the Green proposal has gone through, we may as well embrace that the provinces are going to be here for at least 3 more years to come.
No,
and
not embracing it. You're right, they will be here, but I'm not embracing it. The provincial competitions are shite.
They are, but if Kildare beat Meath, will you not enjoy it? If
Kildare, of course, anytime we beat Meath and Tiddlywinks, you'd love it. But you're ultimately, to what end? It would have been much better if we were beating Meath in a league-based system where next year we were going to play them away, and it would be like a raucous Navan and a raucous Newbridge, as opposed to, look, it looks like the Leinster semi-finals might not be in Croke Park, which is a progressive move from the Leinster Council. So anyway, look, we're out of time. We get sucked into a plan B. We get sucked into Saipan. I blame everybody else. I'm taking no responsibility for any of that today. Will, good stuff. The Hurling Pod is live every Monday. Thanks very much for that. You can get it with Will and the two lads. It's been great stuff, and obviously it's going to be great as the season kicks into overdrive from this point forward. The Football Pod is also out at the end of the league, and looking forward to the league final. A reminder, OTB AM is brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. Here's what we got for you on OTB Sports Radio today. Paul McGrath is OTB Gold at 1 o'clock. Dadcast from 3. Mount Rushmore is Limerick at 4. OTB Gold is Inside Park, Harrington's Gaff. And then the show is live tonight, of course, with the game from 10 o'clock tonight over on Twitter. League of Ireland Late Night is going international, looking back on Ireland's performances.
Oh yeah.
Sounds filthy.
League of Ireland Late Night.
Nathan, Johnny and Shane Keegan will be live on Twitter Spaces. You should get a breathy voiceover doing that.
Yeah. Just briefly, where did the word gaff come from? Is it a English slang or Irish? It's a really Dublin thing.
Yeah, it's not
Is it English? Gaff?
Well, no, I don't think so.
Where did the word gaff come from?
My gaff, your gaff.
Yeah.
Did you not hear it before? Is that it was?
No,
you came to Dublin a thick culture, and people were using words like gaff, and it was like, what are they saying?
Yeah,
just to have different words for houses and everything.
Well, I'd like to say, unlike, let's say, my colleague Dan McDonald, I think I've held on to my local accent. I'm still, people quintessentially still say, oh, he's from Galway. Whereas we had Darren Clark on there last Friday. Darren Clark's from RD. Dan pointed out to me that he was like a great mate of mine when we were younger. It's like, well, you wouldn't know you're from the same town, put it that way. Where did it go wrong for Dan?
Shots fired.
I still have my Galway accent, but I don't know where gaff came from. I love
you don't have a Galway accent. You have a mid-Atlantic, you have the Wild Atlantic Way Galway accent.
Love the Wild Atlantic Way.
Americanized.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that.
Oh, totally.
But in fairness,
you could have stepped off the set of one of those LA Valley shows.
Here. The Hurling podcast, to hear the two boys having their accents, particularly James Gale, if ever there were a Galway accent, because the kids of tomorrow, Ger, will all sound American.
Oh, they do, yeah. Check out Off the Ball on Twitter tonight from 10 o'clock. We're going to bring instant reaction from Ireland, Lithuania tomorrow. Owen Sheehan is in Belfast for us.
I heard he's a very interesting project going on there.
He's going to be outside Windsor Park tonight. We'll hear from former Ireland captain Keith Wood as well. Didn't get into Berghain at the weekend though, our own. I felt a kindred spirit with him like I've never felt before. So you're done. He'll be back. Thanks very much for your time with us, Johnny.
All the best.
Right now we're going to bring you some Damien Delaney speaking with Joe Malloy.
Joe Malloy with you this evening. So a little later on we're talking Canada, because they've had an extraordinary 12 months. Their women's team won gold at the Olympics in Tokyo. Now the men's team have qualified for a first World Cup since 1986, and they are due to co-host the World Cup after that. So we're going to our resident Canada expert, Kevin Kilban. He's going to join us a little later on. First, though, we're talking Ireland 2, Belgium 2. Very happy to bring in former Republic of Ireland international Damien Delaney. Hello, you're very welcome.
Hi, Joe. How are you?
Yeah, great. So just a thought to get the ball rolling, and in the interest of not writing anything off, I'm not saying it would have to be a go-to thing every time, but maybe if we cobble together the money on occasion, can we come up with a fee for Thierry Henry just to be on standby, just in case we need a lift? Because really, that was the crucial moment. That is the only thing you need to see from the weekend. 12 years been waiting to boo that man.
Yeah, finally we got him, and he was sat next to Anthony Barry, who I felt sorry for, because there must have been a moment where he thought, "Is this for me?"
1% for you, Barry, but mainly Henry.
Yeah, listen, it was nice. I think the television director just hung on Thierry a little bit longer than maybe he was supposed to, but it was our moment to get some sort of, not revenge, I suppose, but I don't know, something out of that moment anyway.
Needless to say, we had the last laugh.
Absolutely, yeah. What a performance, huh?
Yeah, well, that's where you can lead off. Are we saying what a performance? We're happy with this?
Absolutely, yeah. You could not be happy with something like that. You know, the way he set his team up, the vigour that they played with, the enthusiasm that they showed, pressing them right from the off, and really for us to go into a game against a world number 1 ranked team and start as brightly as that, but then to maintain it, even when Belgium were having their good spells of possession and Belgium were dominating the ball, which they did for large periods of early in that first half, we didn't kind of wilt and drop back to the edge of our 18-yard box, and the back three quickly became a back five, and the three wide players dropped in to help the fullbacks, so it ends up being like a 5-4-1, and then that's it. The die is cast almost, and they're just retaining possession, and there's an inevitability of almost when they kind of get their goal, and rather than if, and then we're kind of relying on scraps. So that's what it's been. The majority of the last decade, really, of Irish football, against these top-ranked sides, albeit a watered-down Scotland side, but I wouldn't pay too much attention to that. That was still a side packed with players playing in the top 5 leagues in Europe, and players that we see regularly on a Wednesday and Thursday night. Of course, we're missing a couple of their big hitters, but look, let's just give credit where it's due, and my God, I think it is due.
Well, to pick up on your point about the pressing, certainly in Stephen Kenny's first couple of games, there was a real emphasis on pressing, and then it ebbed away a touch across his first year for, I think, different reasons. Like, there's no question in my mind Aaron Connolly was substituted in one game because he just wasn't pressing enough, for instance. Yeah. So at times it may have been on the players, maybe to an extent on management at times. It's good to see it back, though. I think it suits the DNA of the team as well to press.
It does, and we have to give Stephen credit. In a lot of those games that Aaron Connolly played in, it was definitely a 3-4-3, and it was a flat front three with Aaron Connolly high and wide on the left, and Troy Parrott, I remember, had a couple of games high and wide on the right, and then maybe a lone striker down the middle. And I always felt early in his regime, I know he didn't play the system, but the middle part of it, I always felt they got outnumbered in midfield, and pressing seemed to become almost futile because you're pressing and we're getting played through reasonably easy. You just look at the Azerbaijan and Luxembourg game, how much joy they had in possession against us, but he's kind of tweaked it slightly, and it's almost like a 3-4-2-1 where he's just kind of tucked the wide players in, which gives the midfield players a real dig out, because now we don't have 2 centre midfield players, we kind of have 4 because they are inverted, and then the wide players kind of operate up and down the flanks. So defensively, I think that's helped us, that when we do get a press, we get some joy. We force teams backwards or we win it back. Now, of course, you don't want to stop it all the time. Any team or every team, especially, the number 1 ranked side in the world, are going to come through you at times. But it's how often it happens. It is really a numbers game there. And I feel that the coaching staff and the players deserve credit for how they've kind of dealt with kind of that rocky first year. Now, I'm not saying we're home and whole by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not saying that we're the finished article by any stretch, but it certainly seems like the picture Stephen was trying to paint or is trying to paint is starting to take shape. There's an outline starting to be visible now.
Yeah, for sure. And we saw the Irish team win the ball high in the Belgium half, even late on in the game, for instance, and chances created. Yeah. We saw on 47 minutes when Seamus Coleman stepped up, he nipped in for the ball. That was the one that almost fell for Robinson when McLean had the strike, and that was a big moment. And even Kenny himself, if we take that first half hour or so as Belgium dominance to an extent, then Thierry Henry aside, Stephen Kenny cited Kieran Clark stepping up into midfield and winning a ball, and it resulted in Ireland's first shot as maybe a bit of a turning point. So the likes of Clark, the likes of Coleman stepping in, and then also winning the ball high up the pitch, this is good. This is pressure on the opposition.
Yeah, absolutely, and it obviously what you just described there is accurate, but it also is like a feeling comes throughout the team that we're not just here to sit in. It's almost like a message gets sent out. When Seamus does that, everybody kind of sees him doing it. Or if any player does that, everyone kind of goes, oh yeah, sorry, we're not just here to get beat, we're here to compete. And Seamus stepping in just sends a message and just reminds players sometimes, because when they're having their long spells of possession, it can get difficult when you're dropping in deeper and deeper, and sometimes the easiest thing to do when that type of pressure comes on is to sink towards the edge of your 18-yard box. But when one player does it, it kind of reignites everybody else and lets everybody know visually that, look, rather than just a word or someone shouting, roaring, somebody visually sees something like, oh yeah, I forgot we're on the front foot. And look, there'll be times, I'm pretty sure in the Lithuania game, where they'll have spells and they'll come through us. But, it's something is the green shoots we spoke about after the end of the last campaign that, we said that need to start growing. Well, there was certainly a little bit of growth there on the weekend.
The Batshuayi goal, on first glance, you'd think, well, it's just quality. He gives himself a yard and shoots early, and it's a high-quality goal. And I think that stands. But then on second viewing, of course, we're going to look at it from an Irish point of view. So give us your view on Coleman and Kelleher in the goal.
Well, first of all, I suppose there's three parts to it. I would leave Caoimhín out of it, really, because, it's a good finish. But the first part is the confidence that we showed in pushing the wing-backs in. Obviously, there's a downside to that. It does leave some space down the side of the three centre-backs. And that is an area that teams will look to exploit with us, because when you have a team as front foot and engaging as Ireland, and you look at the position of the two wing-backs, Matt Doherty and James McLean, they're higher than the two midfield players when the ball gets turned over, which is great. But on the flip side of that, the weak spot is down the sides, and obviously Batshuayi pulls into that channel and the ball gets played. Now, if you're being ultra-critical, the easy thing and I believe the lazy thing to say is that, Seamus has got to get him down the line. And of course he has. But, you still have to recognise that if you push Batshuayi down the line, it could still be a problem, because the only way you guaranteed get him down the line there is standing square with him, So he definitely cannot come inside. But if you stand square with a player, unless you're ultra quick, and there's only a handful of fullbacks, I believe, that have that type of pace, that can stand square with a centre forward, and when he pushes it, make up that ground. Think Aaron Wan-Bissaka, he's one of the best at it. That's why he very rarely gets beat. But obviously Seamus is just giving himself a yard or two just in case he pushes it down the line. I think Matt Doherty could do a little bit more. I know we spoke at length before about his urgency to get back and spot danger. I think he must know that Seamus is going to do his best to get him down the line. But, if Seamus stands square with him, there's a good chance he could go down the line and cut in on goal, if you know what I mean, and then get a direct route to goal. So Matt Doherty has to come back and help him there. And if you watch the replays of that, I think he probably could try just a touch harder to get back in and give Seamus a dig out there. But look, it doesn't happen. And almost having said that, when he chops inside, it's not like he cuts inside and travels along the width of the pitch and then bends it in the far stick. He just cuts inside and hits it. Yeah. And that's what catches Caoimhín off as well. If you watch Caoimhín's positioning, he's probably expecting another touch there. Or I think that him and Dean Kiely will look back at that, and they'll probably be ultra critical of Caoimhín and say, listen, you got to expect that snapshot is going to come. Yeah. And as soon as he checks inside...
I think you could be more than a tiny bit critical of Kelleher, actually, because you watch it again, he's incredibly flat-footed. He's not expecting the shot at all. No, and, it would be the kind of thing, if Bazunu had conceded that goal, what we would say to ourselves is, well, he's not used to that kind of quality in League One. Whereas Kelleher's used to that kind of quality in training most days and in his Premier League, Champions League games. It was really high-quality play. One quick cut, no time for Coleman to come across, and the shot's gone. But he's incredibly flat-footed. He's not even thinking shots coming here. So, again, it's the quality of the goal, but you'd hope that's the last time Kelleher's flat-footed a moment like that. So do you not think Coleman should make more of an effort to really say to Batshuayi, you're going down the line, there's no way you're coming inside?
Right, but if you do that, right, and you haven't got the legs that an Aaron Wan-Bissaka, say, because I use him because he's probably the best at it, you got to give yourself a chance that if you do show him down the line and he takes it, that you have the legs to keep him going down the line. What I'm saying to you is, if you stand square with him and he pushes it and you haven't got the legs to stay with him, there's a direct route to goal there now. His second touch after he pushes it is going to go back towards goal across Seamus. Yeah. So Seamus would be in an element of protecting. There probably was a time a number of years ago where Seamus would have had that type of pace, that type of legs to do that, but not anymore. So he's protecting himself, and I know what that feels like.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. As soon as Batshuayi comes inside, I mean, I wouldn't nail Caoimhín for it.
No.
I think you'd be ultra critical.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, as soon as Batshuayi has touch inside, Caoimhín almost has to mirror his movement. So when Batshuayi comes inside and takes a step, he has to take a step with him, because he's covering an angle of where Batshuayi is. As soon as Batshuayi comes in, he's changed the angle. I'm getting all technical on goalkeeping aspects here, and there's probably goalkeeper coaches listening going, what is he on about? But he needs to almost mirror that, I think, and move with Batshuayi, and that will help him. But look, that comes from playing and not playing, and I agree with you. In training, he's facing that kind of quality, but training and playing is two different things. It's probably a momentary lapse from him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're talking about the number one team in the world, so these things are going to happen. One last one on Coleman, then you can balance up the ledger book. So he's protecting himself as defenders of a certain age do, and he's one of the great players, one of the great Irish sports people, so nobody would thank us for being overly critical of Coleman. Where is he in terms of, that's the downside of his age, in that he's going to have to look after himself in certain instances, and it can result in a chance, versus, I mentioned him stepping into midfield play and setting a tone and contributing. So where are we in Coleman? Because certainly his Everton form has been picked out by high-profile pundits.
Yeah, listen, Seamus still has a huge role to play for Ireland on and off the pitch, absolutely. But you're going to have to accept now that time, and maybe not so much time, but mileage has caught up with Seamus. He's a lot of miles in the clock. He's played an awful lot of football. He's been a regular, barring injury, and that's probably something else. When you have an injury of the significance that he had at the age that he had, sometimes it can take a little bit longer, or it might be a little bit more difficult to regain the type of pace and power that you have. But look, he's still an incredible player. He's probably not what he used to be, and I'm pretty sure he would admit that, but he still has an enormous amount to contribute to Ireland on and off the pitch. Off the pitch, he's obviously the figurehead, he's the leader, he's the main man in the changing room, and all the players really like Seamus, and as a character, he's brilliant. So even if he plays or he doesn't play, I'm pretty sure Seamus would still have a huge part to play in it. But we have to accept now, or maybe Matt Doherty has to accept, that he needs to get back quicker to help Seamus. That's probably one way of I won't say dealing with it, but mitigating that circumstance. But look, he's still a tremendous football player, and for me, he plays.
Okay. Ireland in general play and the Irish attack, be curious for your thoughts on. Just looking back at the last number of games, admittedly not all against stellar opposition. Azerbaijan, Qatar, Portugal, that was a 0-0 draw. Luxembourg and Belgium. It's still 12 goals in 5 games. You're going back a long time to the last time Ireland scored 12 goals in 5 games. So why is this happening? What are you seeing in the attacking play? What are you seeing in our general play when we have possession?
I think he has come away from his early total football, slow play where teams can drop into a shape and we find it hard to break them down. There's definitely more of an element of directness. And by the way, that's brilliant. I think it's great. And he's utilising Ogbene's physicality and his power and his pace of running in behind. Balls get spun down the side more. Callum Robinson gives you, or gave us on the weekend, a real direct threat. So he's got direct players who run in behind at the top of the pitch. Those games where he played with, Troy Parrott, they're all players that like to come and link it. Aaron Connolly, I mean, I'm not sure how you describe him. He's a little bit of everything, but he's not a direct, pacey runner in behind. He likes to come inside and link it. He's put players in the team that threaten him behind. And we are not turning that opportunity down, as we saw with the equalising goal. I think it was Matt Doherty arrived to pick up a knockdown, and there was nothing fancy. He just helped it into the corner. It wasn't a particularly good ball, but it was just a kind of spinning a ball down the side, and Benny made something of it. And I think that's really smart in his point. I think early on in the campaign, there was maybe we're kind of a little bit stodgy, and we passed the ball, and we were trying to be too intricate and trying to find players in pockets, and it all got a little bit slow and predictable. But now we're playing some nice football, and we are passing it, but we're also not turning down the opportunity of the players that we have in Robinson and Ogbene, which is just balls just spun down the side. And then the two midfield players are competent passers of the ball. I think Jeff Hendricks is in the middle of a renaissance. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen Jeff play as well with the ball. Even when he was playing at his peak in Burnley, he was always just kind of, he was in the team for legs to get up, and Burnley played a 4-5-1, and he could link the midfield to the attack very, very quickly. And he was always very, very competent. But I'm seeing a level of composure in Jeff's play at the moment now, where he's playing a couple of passes into pockets and sliding balls down the side and picking people out. So, they're both very, very competent passers of the ball. And as I said, it just seems to be a nice little thing happening at the moment.
Sure does. Because with Hendrick, he's technically really good. There was never a reason why Jeff Hendrick shouldn't be really good on the ball and a really good passer over the years.
There's probably a reason, I tell you. Managers probably never saw it in him and never told him he was a good passer, so maybe he started to believe that he wasn't, and he was only in the team for a specific reason, and that was just to, especially at Burnley, to get up and join in, especially in Ireland's shirt where we were defending. And Jeff is regardless of what you say about his performance, he's willing and he runs around, even under all the previous managers. He always put in a shift, but on the ball, he turned it over quite often or quite cheaply. But at the moment, I'd say Stephen's probably telling him, or Stephen might have convinced him that he's a far superior player than he's shown in the past.
Well, even his pass for Jason Knight, all these kind of moments, it's there. On the slightly more pragmatic approach on the ball, a willingness to clip balls long or down channels, I mean, that all stands in wonderful opposition to what we saw at home against Luxembourg back in that awful March, when I think Kieran Clark kicked the ball away 11 times and we were just penned in on that left-hand side and refused to break the pattern. So now we're doing it. And the other good thing, so you used the example, for instance, of the equaliser where Coleman clipped one long and it was Doherty, as you said, who picked up a ball. Like if you hit pause on that moment where the ball is in the air, I think it was either towards Ogbonna or Will Keane, the Coleman clip, but you have Irish players rushing towards the ball. And so I think all of us can live with that kind of a pass, that long pass, as opposed to the days of Shane Long with 50 yards around him winning a flick on to the opposition goalkeeper, which is utterly pointless. Like there's a method to those kind of clip balls and probably puts manners on the opposition as well.
Absolutely, and I'm all for that. I would never say that we have to pass out to Shane Duffy in the 6-yard box and then come through every player to touch it to get it to the other end of the pitch. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And like you said, I agree. There's a willingness now that when the balls are clipped to get up, and the distances are so much better and the quality on the pass is so much better. What you're talking about there with Shane Long was usually a player that hadn't seen the ball for maybe 2 or 3 minutes. He's been chasing it, so he's breathing pretty heavy. The ball drops to him and he's being pressured. So all he does is spin one down the side. It's more hopeful than anything else. And he's more hoping that Shane Long is on the side of the play. And the distance then to get from the edge of the 18-yard box to the halfway line is too big. And as I said, because we've been chasing it for 15 minutes, players haven't got the energy to do it. So no, it's an awful lot more measured. It's a ball that's played up. It might not be of the greatest quality, which maybe the ball that Seamus clipped wasn't. But, the defender couldn't get a good head on it. He headed it down. But all the players now are in good physical condition because they're having chunks of games. And, of course, the distances, if you look at it, it's a clipped ball. It's not an absolute lump 60 yards, and nobody's making that up. So I agree with you, but that comes down to, the factors that I just mentioned there.
Yeah. We want more Damien Delaney-esque chipped balls, chip passes. That's what
I was definitely more of a smash it and good luck to the fella chasing it.
Yeah, get after it. The Alan Brown header, quality.
Yeah, absolutely. Incredible. I mean, I love the fact that he if you watch it back, he holds his run almost as if he's going to lock up the edge of the 18-yard box just in case they win the header and it drops to a Belgian jersey and it's his job to stop the counter-attack. He almost just slows down. But then at the last second, he just thinks, actually, hang on a minute, I can get in the box. But because he's only 15 yards away from the 6-yard box, he can make up that ground quite quickly and he arrives bang on cue and the ball is plumb on his forehead. And, I mean, he just meets it brilliantly. And I think as soon as he met it, he just thought there's no way any goalkeeper going to stop that. So it's just a good header. But as I said, it's just down to the attitude and the positivity that's in the side at the moment. Like I said, he could quite easily have looked at the clock and just thought, you know what, I'll just stay here in the edge of the box and hopefully think something will pop out and I'll get a strike on or something like that. But he didn't. He actually wanted to go and get his head on it.
Yeah, and he had that header against Serbia as well. So he's good timing in the air. He's a big, tall fella, so he's a good presence to have. And in fairness, the quality of the cross from Ogbene was screaming out, the pace of it, the loft on it, was screaming out to be attacked. And let's talk a bit about Ogbene, because his impact here has been fairly extraordinary. He got his goal as well, and no problem with someone having a crack at an overhead, that's exactly what you want to see. It is extraordinary, and even I think Stephen Kenny's kind of said this, rather than look at Ogbene and say, well, he's our wing back, And I mean, we certainly aren't using him that way. So his performances have been such a bonus for the Kenny regime, because I don't think he was on our general radar 18 months ago, that's for sure.
No, absolutely not. And if he's playing at wing back at Rotherham in League One, maybe we were all kind of looking, thinking there's not much in it. But look, it was an overhead kick, but it was a 2-touch overhead kick. He set himself up for it, which is even more impressive, to be honest with you. In what was he, 7 yards out in a packed box, he had the composure to flick it up for himself and then hit it. So look, Stephen obviously makes him feel welcome. I read all his press stuff before the game where he spoke, about sometimes he doesn't feel like not that he shouldn't be there, but he just feels like I'm playing for Ireland. But then Stephen reassures him and tells him, look, you have everything. You're a main guy. You're going to play. But regardless of where he plays, he has a unique set of physical attributes in so far as his size and his pace and willingness to utilise all those attributes. And he just genuinely looks like he loves coming in playing from Ireland, He just shows up and he feels at home. And that's testament to the environment that they've created, that there's nobody coming into the environment feeling like they shouldn't be there, or I'm a League One player and I'm playing with or against these players that I perhaps would never ever get to play against. But he feels at home and he feels confident. And as I said, that's a testament to the environment that's been created there.
Yeah, and even, it's funny, like that environment extends to the crowd as well. I think Stephen Kenny has been smart in the way that he has laid all this out. Young players coming through, we're building a new style. Somebody like immersed in Irish football, understands Irish football and respects Irish football, and he's taken the crowd with him. And like, you think of somebody like Ogbene, young player coming in, going to make the odd mistake, but has lots of attributes. The crowd's reaction to him versus, I don't know, the crowd's reaction to an Aidan McGeady a decade ago when he made a mistake, it's different. And I think Kenny has been smart, because the atmosphere on Saturday is a part of this conversation, that there is massive buy-in now, and all the talk in the media and the complaining about the 12-11 match losing run, which had to be talked about because it was worrying. But all of that is very much parked at the door, because there's something very good going on between Kenny, the team, and the crowd at the moment. And, we haven't seen it in a long time, I'd say.
It is, and I think if you broaden that picture out to the whole last decade of Irish football and the type of football that was played, and obviously then the scenario that unfolded at the FAI, it was almost like we were down and out. Things perhaps, I wouldn't say couldn't get any worse, but it wasn't looking good. And then Stephen has come in and he's kind of promised a different way. Now, all this loving for Stephen is great, but look, he still has to produce. We had a good result against Belgium, and I'll be the first one to give him praise, and I'll be the first one to criticise him and then the things that I saw wrong against Luxembourg. But ultimately, the Nations League is coming up now, and he needs to continue this improvement. He needs to start getting results.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.